adjust my chair. Oh, my legs are so sore today. I'm like,
Mine too. It was leg day for me at the gym.
but mine are sore like my joints. Like, it's like not my muscles. It's like my I'm just like, but all right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Tonight we are debating whether or not feminism is making dating worse. And we are starting right now with Counterpoints opening statement. Thanks for being with us. Counterpoints, Connor, the floor is all yours.
Thank you kindly. Yep. And then I wrote this down. Feminism is oftentimes defined as the legal and social equality between men and women. And I think that's a potentially noble goal, but we have to recognize that we are different genders and or different sexes, that we have complementary but sometimes opposed roles, and that we need to define those roles. It's pretty clear that if we look at statistics in reference to inceldom or volceldom or, men going their own way or the red pill, that something is wrong in reference to the current dating scene. It seems like men are being left behind. It seems like they're not able to get partners. It seems like they're not able to get married. It seems like they're not able to achieve the lives that they want. And I think this is partially because of developing social norms. Men are in a passive role because they're afraid of being blasted on social media. They're also afraid of being investigated criminally or fired for sexual misconduct. And while we can look to some things improving over the past 2 decades in reference to male sexual conduct, we can also understand that maybe there's some areas where we've gone too far. The fear in corporate spaces in particular is palpable. And weirdly enough, oftentimes women are the ones who are suffering. There are plenty of women who are making tons of money and succeeding in the corporate space or in education or academia, and yet they can't find eligible young men to approach them in order to court them, in order to marry them, and in order to have kids. And so women and men are both suffering from the social conventions that we're in. They there's also an additional thing here in reference to women prioritizing the career over courtship. And what's going on is we now have open complaints in social media and in the news media that women are making too much money. Women are too well educated. They cannot find men who make more money than them or are better educated than them. And then therefore they're choosing to be single. This is obviously socially dysfunctional. It's obviously hurting our society. And I stand by the premise that feminism is hurting the dating scene.
You got it. We'll kick it right over to Jen.
Okay, I need to share my screen.
Wow, you made a PowerPoint. Epic. All right, I'm ready for you.
All right, so hi, nice to see everyone. Assuming I'm starting right now, so I'm just gonna skip real quick. If people want to check out my channel, go nuts. It's in the description. Have a unique way to approach debates, yada, 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 but just be clear, I can go into it in detail if you're interested, but let's get to the topic at hand. Is feminism ruining dating? Well, if you are used to watching my show, you'll know that we're pretty much always reducing stuff to process relational primitives. So how are we going to get to a process relational primitive that has 4 waves in under 150 years? Not realistic. So how are we going to do it? Look over meta, wider scope, better comparison basis, better conclusions, stronger arguments. So what are the 4 waves of feminism? So ChatGPT helped me out on this one. So score 1, chilling and taking it easy and winning. Anyway, I largely agree with them. It's not a topic I've studied very much, but I think even those who are familiar with it will agree that there are 4 waves. I'm just going to slide this down. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Marriage, divorce. We're looking at broad type of patterns so that we can come to conclusions that are then hopefully at some point addressed by the other side, but who knows where any of this is going, but we're all having fun. Really happy to be here and glad to meet everyone's first time that I've met everyone here on the panels except James, so I'm excited about this. It's a very challenging debate because how do we actually define the term? Well, we don't. We just look at how people have been defining themselves, namely through marriage and divorce. We want to sort of vaguely presuppose that the point of dating is marriage, and if we're having a downtrend in marriage, well, maybe something's not working out so well on the level of dating. It appears that marriage rates have steadily decreased since second wave feminism. Trends are not equal to reality, but I'd love to hear what my opponents think about this particular trend. Okay, nearly half of US adults say dating has gotten harder for most people in the last 10 years. Do aggregate anecdotes matter? Well, yeah, because we generally want people to be feeling optimistic about the future, because we don't build a great future if we don't believe in it. So we got to ask, like, what's the point of dating? That's a lot less nebulous than feminism, though it's still pretty dang nebulous, because the notion of romantic love has only existed since the late 1700s, and proportional to the total timeline of civilization, this is a mere drop in the pond. So we want to get a little more evidence because it's not obvious enough yet that I'm totally right. It's important to note the potential drawbacks with one's methodologies, especially if one wants to make a generalized type statements. It's just really easy to misreport data, and that isn't necessarily an issue, but when it's not taken into account, then we have to sort of have this massive grain of salt where it's like, not sure the level of credulity that I'm going to be lending. But in the case of self-reported negative or positive desire, that's an acceptable form of epistemology in my worldview. So I wanted to mention that about romantic love, because it's not just, I don't want to dogpile feminism. That's passe, you know, it's just perhaps too easy to just dogpile feminism. So anyway, moving on. Maybe the reason dating has been slowly going down the shitter is because feminism is engendering competition between men and women, when what would lead things to get better would be collaboration. Real quick, if anyone cares, you know, I just put this together. It's not really my specialty, but my philosophy can be applied to many things. So just, you know, keep in mind that one discipline mastered is better than many disciplines semi-perfected. But if you can only do the latter, at least do something. All right, so I'm looking forward to the debate. Hopefully we'll actually go somewhere semi-interesting. I definitely don't want it to be like aggressive or anything, hoping we can have as many teaching opportunities and learning opportunities. Well, I'd love to hear, you know, the deeper side of people's beliefs and everything else. So thanks. And looking forward to hearing what the other side has to say. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much for that opening statement. If it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, folks, I'm your host, Dr. James Coons. We are a neutral channel hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, as we have many debates coming up. In fact, our two-day debate conference, DebateCon 6, is happening in Nashville, Tennessee, November 15th and 16th. That's about a little bit over 2 weeks away. If you haven't yet, grab your tickets. They are linked in the description box. I'm going to pin the tickets link at the top of the chat. What are you waiting for? It's going to be 2 days of fiery debates, and you can meet your favorite debater in person, in the flesh, shake their hand, say hello. With that, we're going to jump into the opening from our no side for tonight. Thank you for being with us, William and Garet. Garet, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, James. Will, can you share your screen?
Yeah, let me know when you see it. I'm going to be presenting his slides tonight.
All right, and I'm going to size it down just a smidge so that it fits. And
Cool, thank
we'll
you.
be ready to roll.
Okay, so opening. Sorry, was getting situated. Apologies. So I think life is pretty complicated. Feminism, it can be used to simplify dating by serving as a filter for men and women to help them determine who is a good match. There have been some changes in gender roles, it seems like, at least with quite a few relationships, marriages, a fair percentage of men and women. I think it's resulted in a more dynamic and emotionally fulfilling relationship. Men and women, however, should be cognizant of what they are looking for in a relationship. And we want to have a focus on enhanced dialogue. Um, sorry. Now, political ideology does matter now more than it did 15 years ago, but compatibility is still the primary factor. And we need open and honest conversations about emotions, thoughts, preferences, and values. It helps to build the foundation for a relationship more so than whether or not it's a traditional marriage. Different generations will have different experiences, but there are many of the younger generations seem to prefer the influence of feminism. That's just based on the research that I was looking at. And what I would recommend is maintaining respectful communication, no hostility or aggression. How do you navigate your differences? Among other strategies, focus on what your partner wants, balance it with what you want. If you're with someone who wants a traditional marriage and you want a traditional marriage, then go for it. Don't put yourself into a box. Look at what you value, compare it to others. Boxing yourselves and ourselves, but each other in is counterproductive. Feminism equaling bad is an easy scapegoat, and dating is far more complex than just pointing the finger at a perceived enemy. I think that there are far bigger, more prevalent root causes, such as the internet, social media, dating apps, and the high cost of living are far more impacting to modern dating than feminism. Case in point, one of the main causes of divorce, I think it's roughly around 37%, is financial issues. And of course, infidelity and conflicts are up there too. So I think maybe more marriage counseling would be beneficial. Teach some conflict resolution. That's it. I wanted to keep it short. Go for it, Will.
Thank you, Garrett. All right, I'm still sharing my screen.
Yep.
Okay, so feminism, did it really destroy dating? I would say no. And in fact, it very well may have improved the dating process. So first, I know one of the conflicts we're going to have in this debate is what is feminism exactly? So I try to get a pretty based source that I hope we could all agree upon, Merriam-Webster. The definition is the belief and advocacy of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. And it's important to recognize that it is not in favor of feminine superiority. It is not trying to dominate the male class. They are trying to become an equal in these different fields. Now, real question is dating worse? And how can we know is dating worse? And I think this is the same source of information Jen was actually presenting, which is a Pew Research study from 2020. Well, according to most people, no, dating is not worse. Almost 20% say it's easier, and 30% say it's about the same. And then 47% of adults say it's worse. So most people don't think it's worse. But let's entertain the reason why almost half of people do think it is worse. I think there's a lot more credibility in the claim that dating apps and technology are the disruptors of current dating situations rather than feminism, right? Because apps like Tinder and Bumble and social media are all tools that amplify hyper-selective and status-seeking behaviors, which result in very shallow relationships with your partner because you're focused on appearance and status symbols rather than a real personal connection. So let's not get correlation versus causation confused. Feminism has been evolving next to technology and social media advancements. So I think it's a lot more reasonable to look at social media and technology as the driver. And so does another Pew Research study from 2023, where most people did specify technology as a driver in unrealistic expectations of partners in different relationships. So this has also been shown in surveys as well, that apps are the real driver. They reward novelty and looks rather than equality or empathy or personal connection. So now let's go back to feminism, right? What does the world look like from a dating perspective or a relationship perspective without feminism? Without feminism, we live in a world where men are going to be valued mainly for their income and status, right? Traditionally, that's what men are valued for. But in feminism, men are beyond just an income, right? They share the income responsibility with the women, right? Because we're equal opportunities now. And they also share more than that. They share emotional responsibility. And they are considered to have better communication skills with their partner and be better caregiving partner in terms of their children. So there's more abilities in the world of a man in the world of feminism. Also, without feminism, masculinity is meant to be stoic and dominant and emotionally detached. So we don't want to hear your emotions, men. We want a paycheck from you without feminism. But with feminism, for the man, we expand that definition, right? Feminist men can be nurturing fathers and supportive partners and very confident leaders. And they don't need to suppress their empathy and emotions just to fit the gender stereotype of a man. And obviously there are benefits to the women with feminism, but let's just lay it out in terms of how it would affect their dating prospects. Before, women were supposed to seek financial security from their partners in a patriarchal world rather than emotional connection. And in feminist world, females are supposed to be empowered to seek equality and respect rather than dependency on their partners. Basically, you say, women, you do not need a rich man. You deserve a respectful partner. And I think that's going to lead to a lot more prosperous and fulfilling relationship. And I believe that is my last point here. So I appreciate being here, and let's have a good dialogue.
Thank you very much for that as well. We're going to jump into the open discussion, but first, a couple of quick housekeeping things. Folks, if you did not know, as I had mentioned, DebateCon 6, as you can see at the bottom right of your screen, it's going to be amazing. In addition to the tickets, you can get a signed photo of your favorite speaker, for example, Andrew Wilson, made by Jim Bob, Jake of Rattlesnake TV. If you click on the link in the description box for the Indiegogo crowdfund, this is a way of supporting the event because these are hard to put on, for real. You can also get a signed photo of your favorite speaker by checking out that Indiegogo crowdfund right now. With that, we're going to jump into the open dialogue. Thanks very much. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, if I may, one of the statistics that was presented during the openings was that most people don't think dating is worse. This is just statistically untrue. Okay, so 27% of men are reporting that they have no female sexual partners between age 18 to 30. 4% of the population, approximately, are homosexual males, which means that around a quarter of men are not having female sexual partners, even though they would probably like to. This is a 10% increase since 2008, which means that over the past 2 decades, that it's gotten substantively worse. I'll agree that social media, dating app hypergamy, where women have increased access to rich, attractive men, I think that this is skewing society in a super negative way, and that we are not foisting any responsibility onto women in order to have realistic expectations about their partners. And then also, one of the things that you said is, oh, well, feminism raised the bar in the dating world. Yeah, that's true. That's part of the problem. Women, because they have gendered expectations, they expect to make less money than their man. They expect to be taken care of. But women are pulling ahead academically pulling ahead in income. How are men supposed to compete if women are dominating all these spheres through, equity or equality of the sexes? Also, final point before we get it going is you're saying like, oh, well, we have the ideal of, equality and not female supremacy. Okay, well then let's try to get some equality in these areas. How about we have equality for female draft for the military? How about we get female representation in security work? How about we get female representation in workplace fatalities? How about we get female representation in suicide? How about we get female representation in homelessness? How about we get female representation in deaths of despair? This is bullshit. Men are still taking on the social burdens that they've always taken on, and women are taking on a privileged position within society where they get to have their cake and eat it too.
Wait, so you want more suicides?
I would expect that to be taken as facetious. No, I don't want, I don't actually want increased female fatalities. But what I'm saying is women get to have their cake and eat it too. They get to have all of the benefits of pulling ahead in academia and in income, but they don't have to share any of the burden that males take on.
I'm sorry, I just thought it'd be funny to play into the sarcastic bit. I appreciate that. That was funny.
Because I think what Counterpoints, what you're trying to say is there should be less suicides for men rather than more suicides for women, right? And I think that's a very valid thing to want, right? Because we do want the equality, right? You're framing it in a very negative connotation that, oh, women should meet all the negative standards that men reach. And I think that is not in the spirit of what feminism is, and it doesn't meet the definition of feminism as well, because feminism is about having equality across all standards, especially in social society. And we do not want to simply make the quality of life of women worse and bring them down. We want to bring the quality of life men up and women up so they meet in a higher level.
Okay, but I think that we're kind of here to discuss what feminism is doing. And if you want to talk about meninism, you want to talk about like male advocacy, I'm all about that shit. However, I think that when we're sticking specifically to the topic, kind of the argument is like, oh, well, feminism has made dating better. But if we look at the stats for courtship, if we look at the stats for child rearing, if we look at the stats for any of this stuff, it's pretty clear that the past decade and a half has been disastrous. And I would say that feminism has never been more socially popular.
I'm a little bit confused as to why you're saying like the bit about what was basically hookup culture, where you were talking about men wanting to have more sex but not being able to. Like that doesn't seem like it would be in line with feminism or meninism. Like I don't know how to pronounce that, but I guess it's the opposite.
Yeah, why would you think that's true, Counterpoints?
Well, I mean, I pulled up the stats. I could share it with you. But if we're just talking about like male virginity, though, if we're looking at the stats are pushing all the way back to like the 80s and the 70s. And I understand the sexual revolution was in the 1960s, but presuming that male virginity was relatively stable around 10%, which is, what it seems to be historically. I'll go ahead and dig in and see if I can get some stats before 1980. But presuming, for the temporary sake of argument, that male virginity was less than 10% prior to the 2000s. Listen, I'm anti-promiscuity. I don't necessarily like promiscuity, but at the same time, if we have a quarter of the male population incapable of having any kind of sexual contact with females, we're actually in trouble. If you look at societies where there's wanton violence, terrorism, all that kind of stuff, oftentimes it's a underprivileged male class that is perpetuating those acts of violence.
So one thing that I noticed is you're focusing on a lot of the negative aspects of this idea of feminism, whereas I think looking at the positives too should also be examined. And I also don't like how
Sorry, I'm looking up stats, and I also have to mute myself repeatedly. So if you could yap for another minute while I look up stats, that would be great.
The argument, I can try to put the argument in. Can you hear me okay? I can try to put the argument in a different way for you. It's we take your point. It's an awesome point. We want everyone to have infinity rights and everything, but ultimately somebody has to be accountable to that. And it's like, historically, if you just sort of look into that, you have this thing with harems where one male dominates the sexual affection of many female, and female like, not that they like it, but they've tolerated it over the years. So it's like, how do you respond to that?
How is that an argument against feminism? Feminism says we
It's
should
an
not
argument-
have inequalities
It's an
like
argument
that.
in favor of social engineering, that you're basically according rights without any associated social engineering.
So legal rights should be established in a way that benefits the society as a whole, including taking advantage of the value each of the citizens provide. And when you take serious rights away from people, you're taking their potential away from improving the society in a certain way. So if you're going to make your society a patriarchal society and you're taking women down a notch, taking their rights away, you're going to lose the opportunities that those women would provide your society. They're losing value.
Well, I
and
don't see
they
it
have
that
value
way
to
because
provide.
people are paying taxes and the taxes are giving the rights. And so we're essentially paying for our own rights.
I don't understand what that has to do
So-
with harems.
The argument is that your side leads to harems.
Yeah. No. Well,
Your
sorry. I actually want to.
attitude on it leads to harems.
How
So
does
the question
feminism
is,
lead to a
A,
harem?
is harems okay? And if it's not okay,
How does
do you deal with that?
feminism lead to harems?
Actually,
I'm really
I want to
confused
back
on
Jen
that.
up on this because this actually is backed up by. And by the way, I was looking for stats on like virginity in the 1950s and 1960s, and they basically said that social stigma prevents accurate statistics during that time period. So people weren't, necessarily reporting what their virginity rates were, which makes sense. It was a fairly socially, sexually conservative culture. But backing Jen up, when it comes to one of the things that they found with the dating apps is that dating apps and equal arguments about female and male sexuality effectively led to a skewing within the dating pool. So when you have a socially enforced monogamous society, what typically happens is partners will pair off. But when you have a free-for-all sexual society where everybody can decide what they want to do and they have dating apps on top of that, typically what happens will the men who are highest status, highest in looks, highest in money, they will effectively have all of the dating opportunities, whereas like 70 to 80% of men who are on dating apps won't even get a single direct message. They won't even get a single thing. And so what's happening is a skewing of the hypergamy, where women effectively have sexual or top tier men have sexual access to tons of women. Women have tons of sexual access to top tier men, but then the average and below average men are getting almost no sexual access. That's what Jen's talking about with harems.
Well, I wouldn't say that's part of feminism, though. That's
Why wouldn't it? It's the free choice of women to engage with their sexuality. That's their ability in order to, the cis heteropatriarchy would say, no, women, don't bang, the Giga Chad who's making $1 million. He's just using you for your body. You need to settle down with Joe the plumber and you need to crank out some babies. That's what cis heteropatriarchy would say. Feminism would say, you go, girl. Bang Joe the plumber after you bang the rich guy.
Yeah, but it's the dating apps that enable that, not feminism.
Hold on. Do you think so? So we're comparing two relative social systems. Cis heteropatriarchy, which is kind of like the classic Western chauvinist thing. Well, cis heteropatriarchy is oftentimes rooted in Christian sexual morality, which includes some level of enforced monogamy. So feminism is absolutely, especially if we're talking about fourth wave feminism now, it is about sexual liberation. So how is feminism not a sexually liberal philosophy?
But you have dating apps like Ashley Madison and Adult Friend Finder and all of the hookup type dating sites that actually promote this idea that you're talking about, that these harems. So I would say that those are the root cause of the problem, not feminism.
Wait, but hold on. So if feminism though if feminism puts choice, because we're talking about the equality of the sexes, right? And we're effectively saying that the sexes get to make their sexual choices. We're ultimately in a liberal, a liberty-based society. We're ultimately in a freedom-based society. So if we're giving people maximal human freedom and they're choosing to exercise it in a stupid way that has all these negative consequences, and feminism itself views itself as an emancipatory movement. It's a freedom movement. It's women's freedom to choose what they want to do. How is that not correlated?
Counterpoints, you brought up a lot of different statistics to back up your arguments. In my opener, I showed statistics as well, and I showed the source of them was Pew, multiple different Pew research projects. Would you provide some resources that could point towards the statistics you were providing?
Sure. You want my statistics on virginity and dating app hypergamy?
Yeah.
Well, specifically, you said most people think it's worse, and I was showing you a stat that said most people think it's not worse.
No.
So what's
I
the
was saying
contradiction there?
regardless of what people think, it's statistically worse. So if
How did you gauge that?
53% of people say that dating is better or it's neutral, their opinion doesn't matter. If virginity has increased by 10% in the past 15 years, that's obviously worse.
Why is that
Yeah,
worse?
but how do you know that's feminism and not something
Why
else?
why is a quarter of the male population not getting laid between age 18 and 30 worse?
It's between 18 and 30?
18 and 30. It's jumped up from around 7 to 8% to 27%, and I'm excluding the gays.
So you think that's worse because you would want to have sex in that situation, right?
I think most heterosexual men with a functioning
right.
libido
Right.
would want to have sex between age 18 and 30.
So, but if women don't want to have sex at that age and at that time period, they shouldn't be pressured into it. You would agree?
Sure, but I'm pretty sure most women not only want to have sex during that age period, I would argue that they probably are having sex during that age period. So it's only the bottom 25% of men who are being cut off. And by the way,
So
men
that's an
are
assumption
fucking
that you made.
dangerous. That's a
assumption you
social
make.
ill.
It's an assumption you make based on no data, right? You're just making up an idea that you think is true, you feel like it's true, but you're not actually showing anything that provides that truth.
No, I can
right?
I can
Any kind of
provide the
statistic.
stats in which I would say male
Please.
male virginity increases. I think I can also relatively easily find that in societies with males who have reduced sexual access, those tend to be more violent societies. This has been studied in the Middle East and North Africa, where female sexual access is pretty strictly controlled, and as a result, there's excuse my debate bro language, but there's like actually, I don't even have to use that word. I can use a different one. There's a male underclass with no economic or sexual access, and there's correlated increases in violence.
So
you're saying I'm pulling it out of my ass? I'm not. I could pull you the stats
that's
if
in
you
South
want.
Africa, though, right?
What's that?
You said that's in South Africa?
That's in the Middle East and North Africa.
Sorry, I apologize. Middle
So,
East and North
like-
Africa. So how do you know that the economics associated with that are not a bigger contributing factor than feminism?
Well, I mean, they could be correlates, but at the same, there's no feminism in the Middle East and North Africa. These are arguably more patriarchal societies. They're not just
Right.
Western patriarchal societies. But FreeWill was making the point of, why do you think this is worse? And not only do I think men who are in the situation would think this is worse, I also think there's probably predictable negative social consequence.
Yeah, but we're trying to determine what the root cause is, and it seems to me that economic difficulties and more time spent on stuff like video games and social media would have a bigger impact than feminism.
You're
but
probably right.
Sorry,
but
go ahead.
The debate is about feminism, so
Well,
it's
yeah, it
hard
is,
No, the
to
but
debate
that
is
doesn't
about
mean I
identify a
can't
cause.
that doesn't mean that I cannot identify some other root cause.
The
Well,
debate
you
is about,
could
is feminism
identify another
making
cause.
dating worse, not just about feminism. Maybe we can admit dating is worse, and we are proposing an alternative reason that isn't feminism.
Such
Okay.
as economics and like the high cost of living and video games and social media, the internet, like stuff like
lots of different things
sites
happening.
like pornography could also be
Easy
a
access to
contributing
porn.
factor. Like men have easier access to pornography than they do talking to women, and social media and the internet are part of that problem. a large part of that problem.
Okay,
I wouldn't say
but then we get
feminism
into different strands of feminism, right? Because there's sex positive feminism, which valorizes sex work, valorizes pornographic actresses, valorizes female sexuality being propped up on the world stage, and it's an emancipatory and freedom based movement. And then there's sex negative feminism that says that all this shit should be controlled, and that effectively all you're doing is you're decreasing your value as a woman in order to sell your sexuality. So feminism, once again, like it depends on which feminism you're talking about, because there's pro-pornographic feminism.
I love that
Yeah,
you bring
and
that up, Counterpoint, because it shows that those 2 points are not an inherent part of feminism. Feminism is about equality of the sexes, not necessarily about putting pictures of yourself on the internet. It's not necessarily about locking up your reproductive organs so no one can access it. Those are people's different interpretations of what feminism can be, but those are not inherent to feminism. You need to argue why equality of sexes in social society and economic society is a bad thing for dating, not saying some feminists like to put pictures of porn on the internet. Some feminists want to lock up their genitalia. So those things are bad, but that's not what feminism is.
Okay, but the premise, hold on.
Think about it like a bell
So
curve.
no, you guys,
the extremist positions are the ones that should fall outside of that definition that Will is talking about.
okay, yeah, but this is where you guys are shifting the frame of the argument. So as an example, what I think Jen and I have to make in this argument in order for our arguments to be coherent is that feminism is an exacerbating factor. So all the things that you brought up, new technology, social media, industrialization, access to pornography, all that kind of stuff, those could all have, let's say that dating was 20, we could actually go ahead and say it. It's 15% worse, okay? Let's just use the male virginity statistic as the statistic. So dating is 15% worse. Okay, so if feminism was 0.5 or 1% of that 15%, our argument would still be sound. Okay, so if you could say that, oh, it's 15% worse because of all these other like technological developments. Okay, cool. I'm still saying that feminism ain't helping.
Prove that it's 0.001% part of it. You have to prove that, though. You can't just say
why couldn't I just appeal to like recent history? Why would I be able to appeal to like the Me Too movement, for instance? Why wouldn't I be able to? Why wouldn't I be able to appeal to, for instance, like Aziz Ansari
when this
being
is over,
canceled in the past like 6 or 7 years, where effectively what happened was he went on a bad and awkward date and he was dogpiled for weeks on social media.
You are getting correlation and causation confused. Counterpoints.
No, I don't at all.
And it happens alongside something else doesn't mean that thing is causing that thing, right? You literally said, what can't I just appeal to what's been happening in recent history? Because it all must be a product of feminism. It all must be a cause of feminism.
Except that's not what I said.
No, but you are saying it must be contributed to.
Do you think Me Too was a feminist? Do you think Me Too was a feminist social media movement?
Yes. I don't think it started out. I think it started out as.
Wait, hold on. That's bullshit, Garrett. You think that Me Too was not a feminist social media movement?
That's not what I said.
Okay, then please repeat what you said, because apparently I didn't hear it correctly.
I don't think it started out that way. I think the initial intention of the Me Too movement was to address the sexual abuses coming out of Hollywood.
Wait. If feminism is a movement in order to establish the social and legal equality of women, how is exposing the sexual abuses of Hollywood not a feminist, like a feminist attempt?
Don't you think it's more likely that the Me Too movement latched on to feminism as an offshoot?
This to me is like saying that the Iraq war was a war that correlates with like military shit. Like, why the fuck wouldn't you just say they're the same thing? It's very clearly that Me Too would be a subset of a feminist movement. Why wouldn't that just be like an obvious truth?
It seemed like it started with Bill Cosby, the transgressions of Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein, like what they did to various women over the years came to the surface, and that is what's
okay. But the whole point of the catchphrase "Me Too." I'm sorry, I'm going to latch onto this like a rabid dog because I think you're just coping at this point. So Me Too is the whole point of that hashtag was to share the ubiquity of female sexual abuse across many industries. And so
Yeah.
as a result,
Okay.
it's necessarily an argument that this is a near universal experience, that women experience sexual abuse across like all of Western culture. And therefore, it was a movement to free women from sexual abuse. In that way, it would be definitionally feminist.
I mean, okay, so
It's not even core to my argument. I don't even know why you wouldn't just be like, yeah.
I mean, let's say I concede that. Isn't it true that according to FBI statistics, like the rape statistics is like 20% of women, and that also goes for women in the military as well, like 20, 25, not just women, but men also being raped in the military as well. I
Yeah.
remember watching a documentary on Netflix about it. So are all accusations of rape and sexual molestation true? Most certainly not, but it seems like roughly a large percentage of them are true.
I think the
The
argument is
So is
more
there
like there's no
justification
advocacy for
for the
men
Me Too
getting
movement?
sexually harassed. It's not about equality between men and women for regard sexual harassment. It's about bringing awareness to a female issue.
I don't even think that's core to my argument. Like, by the way,
Right,
guys,
like I said,
just
I'm
because
fine
we're
conceding that.
arguing, just because we're arguing about feminism doesn't mean that I'm coming out for, you know, pro sex abuse, right? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not what's happening tonight. Okay,
Right.
What,
I do
what
have
I'm,
a
Me Too movement good.
what I'm trying to say is, and by the way, like, I'm arguably for the legalistic treatment for like the equality of the sexes or the equality of the genders or whatever. But what I think
Yeah,
that
I
is
am too.
missing, what I think is missing from this conversation, though, is that we're not equal. We're not equal in a ton of ways. We're not equal biologically. We're not equal socially. We're a complementary, like, regardless of whether or not you define it as sex or define it as gender, we are not like an equal sex or equal gender. We're complementary. Some people have certain strengths. Some people have certain strengths. Some people have certain
Right.
weaknesses. Some people have certain weaknesses. And
Mhm.
oftentimes through stereotypical means, we complement each other as a species. And so what I don't like about this conversation, the reason why I'm saying that feminism has made dating worse, is because the excesses of the Me Too movement, which I think is necessarily a feminist movement, was that normal male dating behavior, like approaching women, asking women out on dates from the workplace, those were vilified as sexual abuse and sexual harassment. And a shitload of men have withdrawn from the sexual marketplace as a result of fearing the consequences of Me Too and a feminist movement. That's bad.
So what's your proposal to have made it better, Counterpoints?
Is probably to have this conversation right here. Number one, I don't expect women to fix it. So, you know, I'm sexist that way. I don't expect women to fix much things. So I think it's incumbent upon us to tell men, you know, you're scared of getting accused of sexual harassment, stop being a pussy. Just be tactful, be polite, ask a woman out on a date. And if she says no, then drop it. And basically teach men the social skills necessary to overcome their fear and anxiety when it comes to asking women out. Now,
Okay.
when it comes to women,
But you're
I
not
also think,
against the
well,
Me
you
Too
asked me a
movement.
question. I want to finish real quick. I also think when it comes to women, we also need to say, it's actually a Bo Burnham song, by the way. Bo Burnham wrote a song saying, if you want love, drop your expectations a lot. And I think women could use that advice nowadays, where if you make a shitload of cash and you have a high powered job, you're not going to find a giga chad who makes more money than you. You're going to have to date Joe the plumber, and it is what it is.
I think it's there's a couple things that I want to say, and I have a question at the end of this. I think it's terrible for feminists to have this position of I want equal pay with the men in society, and then when they get that equal pay or more, to turn around and say men should make more than, like, my husband should make more than me. I think that's an absurd position for feminists to take. I don't think that should even be I don't think feminists should have that as part of their mindset. I think
Well,
that's
it's not feminist.
incorrect.
It's not a feminist way to think.
Okay. And now the question that I have, Connor and Jen, is why did the first wave of feminism start? Like, what caused that to occur?
I mean, wouldn't it be suffrage?
The government wanted a larger tax base. So voting is a basically near meaningless franchise. They can just, you know, award it. And
So the government started feminism?
Well, it
Yeah,
didn't
I don't know if I agree with that. I think isn't arguably the first wave of feminism, isn't it the suffragette movement?
Mhm.
I mean, I could look it up if nobody has the answer, but I'm assuming that the first wave of feminism was the right to franchise, which is actually funny about the United States. Black men got the right to vote before white women. So I think that's an irony of history.
Sure, yeah, I would agree with that. So I saw that in Jen's PowerPoint that the first wave of feminism started in the 1800s. So
Yeah, through
do
the
you
use of
think that it
suffragette,
came about,
they wanted to vote because it's
do
a
you think that
relatively meaningless franchise.
do you think that the root cause of it was that they wanted to vote, or was there something else to it also, like as far as like trying to obtain mutual respect in the household as well?
Listen, I know I'm arguing the douchebag position, but just because I'm arguing the douchebag position doesn't mean that I want to return to
1800s?
1810 style cis heteropatriarchy, okay?
I can't
So-
really speak to their motivations because like I wasn't there and I'm sure that they had good motivations because usually to do great works you have to like believe that you're in some sense justified. So I don't see how that is germane to anything because I'm just looking at the outcomes, which
Well, I
is like,
think what I'm
yeah,
I think what I'm
you've
trying
got
to
this
get at,
situation where if you're a female or a male and you're not working, that's like almost like borderline a taboo.
I think what I'm trying to get at is it doesn't matter how well our intentions are when it comes to creating a solution for a problem, it will have flaws. These are human problems with human solutions that we've come up with. Nothing is going to be perfect. And I think that we as humans also have a tendency to expect a perfect solution when that is simply impossible. The best that we can come up with is a good enough solution. And for its time, it seemed like feminism was good enough. And according to the research that Will provided in his Pew study, it seems like that feminism is still good enough to fix more problems than it creates.
Well, do
Yeah.
you think that having an adversarial relationship with your significant other is a good thing?
It's not what feminism is. You're just
No, and
making
I
that
don't
up.
like so you had said that anecdotes is important. Just
They
speaking
are
from
important in their own context, but they don't become important until they're aggregated with other anecdotes to see what the
Sure.
statistical significance is per discipline. But yeah.
Just speaking from my own personal experience, I've been married for over 7 years now, and my wife, we fight very rarely. We don't have a traditional marriage. We don't really have gender roles. We kind of just do whatever is needed. I do it, she does it, and we kind of just trade off on the responsibilities. And it's not how her parents were, so my philosophy on it took her by surprise when we got together.
Garet, just out of curiosity, I'm not trying to get too personal, but do you have kids?
Yeah, we have 2 daughters.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So here's the thing, though. I can agree that let's say through the 1960s, I don't think women were allowed to have credit cards without like
Right.
signed permission from their husbands. Like I think that was like one of the part of the lore of Ruth Bader Ginsburg was that she thought it was absurd that it was impossible for her to participate in the economy as a citizen of the United States without the permission of a male. Right. And so I understand that it was necessary in order to fight for women to get as far as they've gotten socially. And I'm pretty sure that if I was born with a uterus, then I might have agreed with that fight. But what I'm saying is, whenever we're talking about what is it? It's like the Hegelian dialectic or whatever. There's like a thesis and an antithesis, and then there's synthesis or whatever. What I'm saying is the thesis, we've moved on. Let's say the thesis was like cis heteropatriarchal Western Christian civilization, and let's say the antithesis was feminism. What I'm saying is the synthesis needs to come about because the pendulum has swung too far, and now we're seeing negative side effects, probably partially from the technological developments that you have mentioned, but also from social expectations that are rooted in feminist philosophy. And freedom is not the, female freedom or freedom in general shouldn't be the only virtue or God that we worship philosophically. And I think we've gone too fucking far.
So your argument was just the fact that the if feminism is not going to be the solution, if providing equal rights to women is not going to be the solution, what legal rights should we not allow women to have so that we do not achieve a feminist society?
I don't even think it's necessarily like legal. Okay. So for instance, like I want, women should be able to vote. Women should be able to open up a credit card without their husband's permission.
Okay.
Women should be able to get a driver's license without their dad or husband's permission. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. But when it comes to equality, it seems like we have this like weird mix of like paternalism, where we kind of treat women like stupid children, but then we also have this like egalitarianism where we can also never tell them what to do. And so just as an example, like when it comes to rape culture as a conversation. So give me a little bit of rope. Okay.
Go for it.
So with rape culture, in the late 2010s, actually early 2010s, I went to college, and this was kind of during a relatively speaking feminist wave. And so there was a class talking about how not to commit sexual assault, how not to commit rape on campus. And overall, it was a pretty good class. However, one of the examples that was brought up was if you are dressed up in a nice suit and you're wearing a nice watch and you're on the wrong side of town at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., do you deserve to be robbed? The obvious answer is no, right? Like nobody deserves to be robbed, right? Just because you're wearing a nice suit and a nice watch doesn't mean that you should have crime visited upon you. However, do you think it would be smart if your friend was saying, hey, I'm going to put on a 3-piece suit and a $10,000 Rolex, and I'm going to drive to the wrong side of town, and I'm going to get drunk and hang out at 2 or 3 a.m.? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that maybe if you weren't like a paternalistic douchebag, or actually maybe if you are a paternalistic douchebag, I don't know which way you would take this, but do you think that you should be able to say, hey, that's a terrible fucking idea. Don't do that. That's dangerous.
So I agree that no one deserves to be victimized.
Everybody agrees with that.
Yeah, that's the obvious.
Okay, but
answer.
do you think that culturally you should be able to say, hey, all of these bad behaviors correlate with negative outcomes? Don't do this stupid fucking thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, what I would say is that just by bringing up this example and just by talking about this, there are people on social media and on the internet who are chomping at the bit to go, oh, you're a rape apologist. They're chomping at the bit. They're waiting for some flub to come out where they can be like, oh, you're talking about what she drank that night. You're talking about what she wore that night. You're a fucking rape apologist. That's the way that's an offshoot of feminism. Whereas I think if we were being honest, we would say, hey, yeah, women, you have the right to drink when you're 21. Hey, women, you have the right to choose who you have sex with. Hey, women, you can go out and you can wear whatever the fuck you want. But there's some bad ideas that correlate with this freedom, and you should probably be aware of these risks.
Well, no one's saying there aren't risks. I don't know why
there's
you think
plenty
that's
of fucking
feminism.
People who would say
Well,
exactly what I just said
saying.
was victim blaming and sexist.
That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're arguing. And
well, then you're not
think
criminally insane, but that doesn't mean that you're representative of all feminists or even the broad majority of feminists.
Feminism isn't about saying what women wear or not. Feminism is saying you can wear it. And I really want to understand the implication of this. I really want to understand the implication of what you are trying to convey with this argument you're saying. So should we put responsibility on the victim or should we not? And if we should, how do we do that?
So I think that you can say you shouldn't go to the bad side of town without putting responsibility on the victim.
No,
Right.
well, hold on. No, I think if we're
right?
using words accurately, that's partially a responsibility.
No, but legal responsibility, right?
No, not legal responsibility.
Okay,
but
so
at the
want
same time, you would give your
That's what I
friend.
was referring to with
If
legal
your friend-
responsibility.
Hold on. Let's work within the frames of the analogy. If your friend was male and wearing a suit and a Rolex and going to the wrong side of town, what are you going to say? Free will.
I would say be cautious.
I think
That's
the
all
broader
you would
question
say?
is there a point at which bad outcomes become your own fault? Does
Hold
that
on.
ever happen?
That's
Or is it
seriously
never,
all you
ever
would
your
say?
fault?
So I can say something's a bad idea without saying they are actually responsible for the crime that happened to them, right?
Okay,
So who's
maybe I'm just
The person who committed the crime is responsible, Jen.
Of course, the person
Wouldn't
who
that be
committed the crime
obvious?
is responsible,
Well,
but do victims?
I
Yeah,
look
but-
at it a little differently because I don't buy the she was asking for it thing, but I think if I'm going to sort of give him the benefit of the doubt, I think what Counterpoints is trying to say is that there are certain things we're entitled to that we need to also, we kind of owe something. If we feel like we're entitled to something, we owe it back.
No,
Everyone's just
I wouldn't even
taking.
say that. I would say that my frustration, kind of with what free will is getting at, okay, is I would tell him to be careful.
That's not what I would say.
You're wearing a 3-piece suit and a $10,000 watch. You're rolling into the hood at 3 a.m. and getting fucking wasted, and you're saying be careful but have fun. That's dumb as fuck. The reason why I think that you're saying that is because you already know that there's a social trap here where realistically what you should be saying is, hey man, that's dumb as fuck. Don't do that. But you don't want to take on the responsibility, because obviously this is an analogy, of telling women what to do. Okay? But I would tell a woman, if she was like, hey, it's Friday night, I'm going to get blackout drunk. I'm going to wear a skimpy outfit and I'm going to go to a frat house. I'd be like, wow, that's a terrible idea. That sounds like the perfect way to get sexually assaulted. And then douchebags would be like, oh, you're blaming the victim for getting sexually assaulted. And I would be like, no, I'm not blaming the victim. Obviously, the rapist is the person who perpetrated the crime. But I think that we should be smart enough as a society to say, don't engage in shitty, risky behavior. And yet, we can't even have that conversation right here because it's so uncomfortable. This is the kind of double standard bullshit that I hate about feminism. This is why I fucking hate it. You can't even just say, hey, yeah, wearing a miniskirt with no panties, going to a frat house and getting blackout drunk is a terrible idea. Don't do that. You're going to get raped.
So
because
that is
it's
a terrible
too close
idea,
to victim blaming.
And I'm a big fan of taking calculated risks, and that's not a calculated risk. Like anyone would, well, I would hope anyone
It's calculated, but it's terrible math.
Sure. I think that we should disagree, Will, with this idea that that's just a terrible idea.
No, I do. And I do see your point, counterpoint. There is value in what you're saying, is very true, that you need to be able to understand what the risks are. We need to make sure our population is educated to ensure that they are not taking risks unnecessarily, and what can be more risky behavior and what cannot be more risky behavior. But I want to know,
And what if people
how
are too
does that make
stupid to
feminism
be educated?
wrong? And how does that
people
make
are too stupid to be educated? What then?
What?
Well, it appears to be the case that the majority of people are too stupid to be educated and have to be conformed to normal convention through the threat of force.
But I wouldn't, Jen, I wouldn't, I would say that like the education or whatever, I'm trying to think about this within the context of the college.
So I like, Connor, I like what you had said earlier about what men should do, especially in the workplace. You know, that they should like basically stop being a pussy, and you ask women out, and like that seems like a way for men to get over their fear of being accused of like sexual harassment or whatever. And I think that as a philosophy and a solution could easily coincide with the idea that under these ideas of feminism is, you know, to treat each other with more respect and have open, honest communication, which is what Will and I are saying is included under the definition of feminism.
Yeah, that's probably the ideal of feminism. I agree that if we were to put it in like a platonic plane of forms, then ideal feminism would be this mutual respect and responsibility. I agree with that. However, what I'm pushing for is, no offense to you guys, you know, I don't know if anybody's going to even bother to clip me, but the truth is that if somebody wanted to attack me, what they would do is they would take what I was talking about with that analogy, they would clip it into a 10-second clip, and they'd say, boom, rape apologist. You know what I'm saying? So that's where what I'm saying is this is something where we want to give women freedom freedom to choose what they wear, freedom to do what they drink, freedom with who they sleep with, freedom with how they spend their nighttime, freedom with how they do whatever they want to do, right? We want to give them that freedom. But very rarely, because we're afraid of negative social stigma, will we talk about responsibility. Whereas I feel like there is not that fear to talking to young men about responsibility. Whenever you teach them to shave or drive a car or shoot a gun or work a job or get a degree, there's no fear of talking to a man about responsibility. But it seems like if you talk to a woman about responsibility, then number one, you're either mansplaining, another awesome term from the past decade of feminist insane people on the internet, or number two, you're being a paternalistic chauvinist. So once again, like if you want to deal with your platonic form ideals of feminism, yeah, sure. But we're also talking about where feminism has gone awry.
It definitely sounds like you are actually in favor of feminism. You just think the execution of
the
extremists and maybe the general execution of feminism isn't to your liking, and it's not resulting in the outcomes that would result in a true feminist society.
Like I said earlier, any solution that we come up with is going to have its flaws.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of had this conversation with my wife, and I got two kids, I got two boys, and I kind of told her, I was like, if I had a girl, I would raise her like a tomboy. I would teach her how to fight, I would teach her how to shoot, I would take her camping, all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I would do that is because I would want her to be prepared for the responsibilities that are expected out of a male. And I would also want her to be prepared for violence, and I would want her to be prepared for how fucked up the world can be. And, I feel like a lot of people don't feel that way. They want women to be simultaneously, it's kind of, and by the way, I sympathize with women in reference to this regard. They want them to be like the perfect sex object, like the what is it? It's like the slut in the virgin. They want them to be virginal, when they're, getting to know them. But then the second that you get into the bedroom, they want them to be like the slut. And also they want them to be, what is it? They want them to be able to protect themselves, but they also want them to be, submissive. And so I understand that there's a whole host of contradictions within like being a woman in the modern era. But what the thing that I bump into over and over and over again is that we don't talk to women about responsibility without being called chauvinist, basically.
So I completely agree with some of what you said. So for example, I am taking martial arts classes with both of my daughters. They're 6 and 8. And I've been told by their instructors that their kicks, their hits, I want them to know how to defend themselves in a violent world. And I think that's the best thing that I could say.
Like, I think that's actually a very feminist way to approach safety for women and get counterpoints. It sounds like you are raising your daughter in a way a feminist would usually agree with.
Connor doesn't have any daughters.
I don't have a daughter.
Sorry, your hypothetical daughter.
We'll see. But my hypothetical daughter, yeah, sure.
Right.
It sounds like you would have raised him the way raised her in the way that a feminist would advocate for, and right.
Sure, but this is the thing where we're talking about extremism. And by the way, like we're kind of in the internet age, guys. So maybe I'm just old as shit. I'm almost 40, but effectively, like you have to understand that
I'm older than you.
I know, Garrett, but you and I will age gracefully in the Twitch and YouTube political space together. But
right.
the thing is, like, you have to understand that 2016 for a lot of people within like the millennial, early Zoomer generation, that was 10 seconds ago. And what was going on was that shitty MTV series run by Francesca something. It might have been Francesca Ramsey, where she's talking about manspreading and white male this and cis heteropatriarchy and all this bullshit. And this was everywhere. 2016 to 2022. And now it feels like the left wing, because of Donald Trump, because of the right-wing ascendants, because of right-wing social media, because of Elon Musk buying Twitter, it feels like the right wing and the conservatives are ascendant. And so what's happened is, instead of all the insane, progressive, rad femme bullshit that was being espoused 2015 to 2019, it feels like feminism has become this like cute, ooh-woo, small, sweet philosophy that wasn't dominating the internet for years. And so that's what kind of feels like bullshit to me. I feel like I'm being gaslit right now, or you guys just weren't around when feminism was this like radical anti-male psycho shit in the
So
2010s.
I also think that is a bigger impact is political ideologies too. Like that's an underlying root cause that. So if you look at like the what is it, MGTOW, men who go their own way, like aren't a lot of them Trump supporters? And I read.
Oh, I think there's actually like an increasing gender gap in right-wing versus left-wing politics. I think it's like a 10-point swing in both demographics in different directions.
So it seems like a lot of women are more liberal and a lot of men are more conservative, and that political ideology is clashing in relationships. So I wouldn't say it's feminism that's the root cause. I would say it's the political divide is a bigger problem than feminism itself.
Yeah, but if you look at the Trump stuff, which by the way, I don't think there's like a bigger Trump hater than me. Like I truly dislike what the Republican Party has become. I dislike MAGA. I dislike Trump viciously. Okay.
I'm with you on that.
However,
100%.
However,
my brain just exploded.
Okay. However, talk to any Republican male under the age of 30. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say that as a white straight male, as a white straight conservative male, they're not the ones doing the oppressing. They're getting revenge. And of course, like their narrative is going to be bullshit. Like 2020 to 2024, you ask them what Joe Biden did in order to hurt them, and they'll be like, he let in too many immigrants,
inflation, and too
and
many
he caused
immigrants.
inflation, right? You know, like that. That's going to be like the young Republican narrative. But you have to understand that like the culture war pendulum is rooted all the way back in like Gamergate and like anti-SJW bullshit from the late 2010s. I mean, Elon Musk himself, his purchase of Twitter is allegedly blamed on the fact that progressives and liberals were dominating social media so much that conservatives couldn't say what they wanted to say, which is why he spent what, like $44 billion on Twitter. It's why he
even
backed
going
the Trump
back
campaign.
further than that, doesn't he have a trans kid or something that like
he
really
blames the
fueled
left
this?
for killing his son by making them trans. Yeah,
The woke
absolutely.
mind virus.
I mean, that's I don't blame, like I wouldn't blame the left for that. Like that's
Well, I wouldn't either because I'm not an idiot, but Elon Musk is, and he's a wildly powerful person. And then not just that, this narrative, I don't agree with this narrative, but I'm saying this narrative is extremely popular in males, young males. They think they're getting revenge.
I mean, so they're getting revenge while being single and having no sex?
Yeah.
Like how is that revenge?
They think that they think by attacking sorry if I'm going a little bit wide with it, but basically like
no, you're fine.
When we're talking about this like gendered
it's
split,
definitely wide though in terms of
is feminism bad for dating?
Maybe give a super pithy answer and then we got to go back to the topic.
Sure. I'll try to be quick. The gendered political gap, I think, is rooted in a perceived male victimization, and that perceived male victimization roots from not being able to get a job, not being able to get into higher education, or not being able to get into higher education compared to minorities and women, not being able to get as much money, not being able to afford a family. And so when you're talking about feminism is kind of like a part of the philosophies that gave women a leg up in academia, education, and employment. And so male resentment, I think, is partially motivated by a reaction to the success, quote unquote, of feminism.
So feminism is the car, and what you just described is the semi. At least that's how I would view it.
I mean, you could perceive it either way, but we can agree that we just had like a 65-mile-an-hour fucking car accident, and both, you know, the truck and the car are on fire, right?
Yeah.
I just thought of a question. If, let's say, feminism just poofed out of existence tomorrow, what do you think the effect would be on dating?
Oh, weirdly enough, I think it would be worse.
I was asking the other side. You've been talking like 75% of the time.
Let's go to William and Garet.
I think it would be worse.
So I think it would be worse for not only the women but also the men involved, because the issue with misogyny or patriarchy, the opposite of feminism, is that it honestly is trapping of men in a similar way like the women are trapped. Men maybe have the force behind the physicality aspect of it, but they are going to be socially entrapped in a dynamic where they are not able to express their emotions. They're not able to concede to many of the aspects of society that are more feminine, and they can't gain that mental healthiness because they can't access that. It's not good for men. It's not good for women because of obvious reasons. They won't have the rights that they should have. And without half of the population having the rights that they can have, you're not using their value in the maximum way you could. They're not stimulating the economy in an economic way that would be contributing to their value.
So,
Jen, if
Wait, for
you
the
want to
vast
say something,
majority of
that's great,
history-
but I would push on that.
For the
Hold on,
vast
I just wanna hear
majority of
Jen.
history, there's been female coverture. So if that's the case, could you ever see a situation where we would go back to that?
Sorry, what do you mean by coverture?
The head of the household, usually a man, owns everybody as his property within the family.
I think we could go back to that, and I think it would be a gigantic waste for all the potential very strong women that could contribute to the society and the family dynamic that would be lost. We could go back to it, and that would be a massive loss, and it would be a much more inefficient society overall.
So, Connor, the fact that you think that the dating scene would be worse if feminism disappeared overnight, does that mean that you also agree with me in the idea that it's an imperfect, flawed solution that has solved some problems?
Yeah. So I think it's a pendulum. And so I don't want women to not be able to vote, not be able to have credit cards, not be able to go out with their father's permission, even if they're adults, inherit property, et cetera, et cetera. If we eliminated all of that, we're just going back to, like, I don't know, the late 19th century. So I think that's silly. However, my argument is that the pendulum has swung too far and that there's things that we need to chop off and say, hey, this is bad. And then just as an example with free will, one of the things that we've had over the past 200 years is we've had a precipitous drop in the birth rate to the point that the majority of the world is no longer at demographic replacement. Now, we as a species are probably going to survive this through technology, automation, whatever, but it is causing some serious fucking problems. And some of those problems are economic. Some of those problems are using immigration as a stopgap for economics. And so the worship of the economy over, like, social function, I think is borderline silly. As a matter of fact, I would say one of the challenges of feminism is, yeah, sure, like, a competent woman should be able to pursue her career on a voluntary basis. But I still think our hostility to a male-female partnership raising children, and one of the partners, let's face it, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, it's going to be the female, stepping back professionally for a half decade to a decade to raise children, I think that should be, like, the pro-social norm.
I thought
and I don't
that
care
the
about the economy. Fuck the economy.
Birth rate was more related to industrialization more than feminism.
It is. It's related to
seems
industrialization and contraception. I wouldn't view that as cultural. I would view that as technological.
And counterpoints, I feel like that's a big issue I'm taking with a lot of your arguments. I feel like you're kind of looking at anything in the world and blaming feminism for it.
No, I think contraception is going to come around no matter what. Even contraception, I think the birth rate is not caused by feminism. I think the birth rate is dropping because of contraception. I think even men don't want children that they can't take care of.
So it's not feminism. So why the bringing it of it? Why'd you
because like I said, the pendulum has swung too far and it needs to be corrected. I said that just 5 minutes ago.
But it's not because of feminism. It's a different.
Yes, it is. You made an argument just like 2 to 3 minutes ago where you were saying, like, oh, well, we would have a less economic, less free, less vibrant society. That's a feminist argument. And I'm saying, I don't give a fuck about that. There are things that are more important than an economically efficient employment model. Having the next generation is more important than having an effective economic model.
Allowing women to stay at home and be a trad wife is a part of the feminist movement as well, because the feminist movement is not
it's a part of some feminist movements. Let's be real.
Well, it's a part of the feminist movements that are honest and actually trying to pursue.
Listen, man. I'm pretty sure that there would
equality.
be some 1960s rad femmes who would hit you with a skillet for some of the shit that you're saying is feminism. So let's be real.
You're trying to red herring the concept of feminism.
I'm not. I'm trying to make you acknowledge that there are some extremes that disagree with you. Feminism, similar to any other ideological movement, is obviously plural.
You're using 9/11 terrorists to argue against Islam. That's not a representation of the majority of the thought process of what feminists are.
Hold up. But if I said, well, and just to make this analogy, sorry, James, we're jumping out of frame again. But if I was to tell you that 25% of the global Muslim population, around 500,000 people, accepted jihadism as a viable political expression, then necessarily jihadism as a component of Islam would still be correlated.
Well,
so
you just
you're
said
saying
25%.
like, oh, jihadism has nothing to do with Islam. It's bullshit.
I didn't say it had nothing to do with it. It's an example of the extreme, right? And you just said 25%.
Sure,
that's not even the majority.
Extreme feminism is still feminism.
Extreme feminism is feminism. I honestly, sometimes it's just not. Like, they can claim to be feminist. It doesn't mean they're feminists. Feminism.
Okay,
means
I think
Well,
Judith
we've
Butler.
had, just one thing, if I could just jump in, there's been 4 waves in 150 years. That sounds pretty extreme to me. I mean, that sounds like a lot. In my worldview, you only ever have one thing, which is a reformation back to the original principles. There's never waves, nothing ever changes.
Well, I mean, just because they're waves doesn't mean it's extreme. Maybe all those waves were perfectly valid.
So how would you qualify something as extreme? Because to me, something changing the goalposts all the time.
So I would view
Hold on,
my
just
thing
to be,
didn't work.
just
I
to be
better
sure
try
I hear
something
the,
else.
just
Oh,
to be,
that didn't work. Better try something else.
just to be sure we heard the end of Jen's sentence. I think she was mid-sentence when you started, Garrett.
sorry.
What was it that you were saying, Jen?
I wanted to know if modifying the core approach 4 times in 150 years isn't extreme, what is?
So I would say an example of the extremism is like what Connor was talking about with women who think that men should make more than them after they've equalized the pay. Like, that seems silly and absurd to me. That's an extreme position. Or a friend of mine today, when I was talking about me doing this debate today, he described these women who walk up to men and punch them in the face and then think that there wouldn't be any repercussions or consequences. That seems silly, absurd, and extreme to me. Those would be the kind of extremists I think that Will and I are referring to.
But and I don't even want to bounce off that, Garrett, is that I wouldn't even qualify those people as feminists. They just aren't. They say they're feminists, but that doesn't mean they're feminists. You could say you're a Christian. That doesn't mean you follow Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you follow Jesus Christ. And
Yeah, that's
it's
the
a
no true
categorical
Scotsman
error.
fallacy, but it's a fallacy.
Wait,
Do you
hold up.
understand
Not a
why
fallacy.
the no true
Well, it's kind of like the
Scotsman
opposite
fallacy
of
is
no
a
true
Hold on,
fallacy?
Scotsman.
okay, Garrett. Like when Jen is mid-sentence, like it's good to wait until they're done with their sentence.
Sorry.
What were you saying, Jen?
The thing is that it's actually an important point to make, is that the no true Scotsman fallacy is actually not that self-evident. So it's basically saying that to invoke an anecdote in the face of a statistic is a fallacy.
So I love that you brought up the no true Scotsman fallacy, and this is not a no true Scotsman fallacy. A no true Scotsman's fallacy is when a Scotsman says other Scotsmen are not Scotsmen because they don't drink. They're obviously Scotsmen because the definition of a Scotsman is someone who is born in Scotland. A feminist is someone who tries to strive for feminism, which is equality of the sexes. And if you are not striving for that, you are not a feminist just because you call yourself that.
It's not just someone who identifies as a feminist?
Obviously not, no. Just
Wait, hold on. Listen, I'm going to call bullshit on this. Listen, the reason why I'm going to call bullshit on this is because you guys...
to respond, Connor, and then we do have to go into the Q&A pretty quick here.
Okay, so the reason why I'm going to call bullshit on this is because obviously we're dealing with like a Christian nationalist, Christian conservative rise here, okay? But I am watching some of the thought leaders of Christian conservatism arguing on Twitter right now about how cutting off people's food stamps and letting them starve is actually awesome and how it's based. And I would say that, they haven't really, paid attention to what Christ said. They might be able to find some random obscure like passage about how like he who doesn't, work shall not eat or some shit, but they're taking one scriptural verse and then they're ignoring the rest of Christ. So if I was to say, oh, well, these Christian nationalists, they're not real Christians. I understand what you're saying because I don't think they're following the message of Christ. But at the same time, they are the largest representation of this movement and probably the largest political bloc that uses any kind of religion whatsoever within the United States of America. So again, I just don't accept this. Plenty of feminists would disagree with you. Plenty of feminists would say that you're not the real feminist for not subscribing to whatever specific dog shit idea they had.
I don't care what feminists would say, and I also don't care what even if you are trying to.
Well, that's
define
very
it,
misogynist
let
of you
go
not to
ahead and
care what
finish my
feminist
sentence
women would
because
say.
You did talk for 75% of the
Let's
time.
hear from William, and then we got to go to the Q&A.
So I don't care that what feminists who disagree with me said. Feminists can be wrong, right? And I don't care what the majority of people who call themselves feminists say either, because that doesn't mean they're right, right? And just because majority of people are Christian, say they're Christian in the country, that doesn't mean they're really Christian. Just because they label themselves as such, because that is not the definition of the word. And you can't just disregard the definitions of these words and say, oh, it's true Scotsman because they all say they're Christian. No, that's not what a Christian is. That's not what a feminist is. A feminist who goes after violence and inequality of men, demeaning them, that is not feminism. Just because they say they are and advocate for it, that's not it.
I mean, if you don't fit within the
Into-
criteria of a
I hate-
feminist
I
or a
hate to say
Christian,
it.
then you're not.
We do have to jump into the Q&A. This one, folks, I want to say first, thank you very much for our guests. They're linked in the description. We're going to jump into your questions. We do appreciate all of them. In terms of housekeeping stuff, do want to remind you, as I had mentioned earlier, and you don't want to miss it, it's going to be amazing. As you can see at the bottom right of your screen, DebateCon 6 is going to be 2 days of epic debates. Meet your favorite debater and see all these debates live and in person. And one really quick thing, in case you can't, if it's just absolutely impossible, you're like, James, I will not be able to do it. It's not feasible. You can watch all the conference from home. If you sign up as a channel member at the final word level, you can see the whole conference for just $14.99. You don't want to miss out on this epic conference. We have one debate that's about to be booked. I have to wait until the contract is signed, but oh baby, this conference is going to be just stacked. With this, we're going to jump into the Q&A. Even Lord, thanks very much for your question. Says, free my Caucasian Ryan. He may have played a bad hand, but he was dealt a pretty bad hand as well. Anyway, it's a pleasure to see you, Dr. Coons. Thanks for your kind words. And I agree. I was maybe a little bit too heavy-handed on Ryan. So I promise we're happy to have Ryan back. And when I said bench Ryan, people thought it was like, oh no, are they like cutting ties? No, I just meant it might be me moderating for a week. But Basil Problem says, modern day debate, when do you think you'll run out of Christian nationalist debate topics? We've had, that's very funny. Ha. We've only had one Christian nationalist debate in I think, no joke, I think ever. I don't think we just did it like last month, maybe. So we have plenty more to come, Basil Problem.
I would like to do one of those.
It's a very real possibility. It is a popular topic right now, as well as there's another one that I'll get to it later. Even Lord says, do you think the political polarization between males and females also makes dating worse? Does feminism make... So that was actually something that came up. Connor, you mentioned the kind of the gender gap when it comes to political party they vote for. Does feminism make females more politically left-wing?
Yeah, I guarantee you that we could probably pull up the stats. It doesn't even sound like it's in contest right now amongst the panel.
I agree with that.
And then I also agree that it makes it worse. So when you have the excesses of the Trump administration coming out, and you got guys saying like, oh, who gives a fuck, lol, this is funny. And then when you have women, my wife is a wine mom, right? But she talked crazy shit on the day that Charlie Kirk got killed. And I was thinking to myself, if I was like a conservative person, maybe I would be offended right now. So yeah, political polarization has absolutely made relationships worse, 100%.
This one coming in. Oh, any other thoughts from anybody else?
I was just agreeing with Connor. I think that political ideology has had more of an impact than feminism. I think we would be having this impact whether or not feminism existed.
This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Basil Problem. He's a real nasty guy, but you know, we put up with him. He says, Jen, are the posts on your blog a prank? If they are not, please explain what process relational consciousness is. We'll give you a chance. Will you define this term for us, Jen?
Right. So most people hear consciousness and they think the little light that turns on when you wake up in the morning. So this is a philosophical understanding of consciousness. So we're basically starting from the position of like what comes first from our own experience, and we can't get underneath our own experience. So we presuppose that the mind is fundamental, and we have to look at basically what is philosophy about. It's about a lot of different things, but one of those things is the general relationship between, the relationship between general and particular. So you want to be able to understand how those things work out and have knowledge relationships that are fruitful. And you can have different general models. Substance dualism is the one that's really popular in the West right now. Most people don't know it by that name, but you can look this up and chat GPT or the like, and you'll see sort of like, oh, this is how a lot of ideas are framed. In my worldview, we see the issues with framing abstract concepts in a conventional sense. So we break things down to semantic primitives, and the semantic primitive that we kind of decided on for this ultimately mentalist worldview is a process. So consciousness is, you can think of it as the very most basic process that there is, or the ground of process, if you want to think of things as originating with some fundamental principles and then growing from there. Or just the permanent motion. So it isn't a joke, but it's meant to be kind of like jokey, because just where people are at, they're not really going to necessarily respond to something really academic. So I'm trying to put stuff out there that people will respond to and just get them asking little questions that eventually put them on a path of appreciating philosophy. Thanks for giving me the chance to answer that question.
This one from Basil Problem, we got that, said, Counterpoints is, in your Christian nationalist future, will we be allowed to vote? Will they be allowed to leave the home? I think by they mean, you know, the gays. I think it's, will I as a gay be able to vote?
Yeah, okay. To be clear, I'm not a Christian nationalist. I'm not a Christian theocrat. I actually think I'm a pretty moderate Republican, regardless of my sexist takes tonight. Yeah, the gays can still vote, the blacks can still vote, the Hispanics can still vote, the Asians can still vote, the Jews can still vote. I am a civic nationalist, a paperwork nationalist. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the American experiment. And just because I disagree with you or think your perspectives are stupid doesn't mean that I want to take away your rights. I just want to argue with you in public and call you stupid.
But can women vote?
He already said that.
Listen. I wish I could be. I wish I could be misogynist enough to say that women shouldn't vote or whatever. But the real take is Pandora's box is open. We're not going back to white men of good character who own property being the only people who are voting. And unless there's in my ideal world, I think you should have to pass a citizenship test in order to vote. That would be my thing. So if you're female, I don't give a fuck. But if
gender does matter.
Race, gender, religion, nope, doesn't matter. You need to pass a citizenship test. And if I was really dictator for a day, I would probably say 4 years of some kind of service. You either serve in the Peace Corps, the Marine Corps, the post office, or you work retail and restaurant during the holiday season for 4 years in a row. Then you can.
Well, you would have
AI in charge.
Yeah.
You would have some type of grandfathering in place, right? Like, you're not going to expect somebody who is 65 years old, 75 years old.
Well,
you're not going to take away their right to vote.
Listen, the entire United States
years.
would need to collapse in order for me to force everybody to take a citizenship test and make them do 4 years of public service. I don't think we have to worry about Connor being dictator of the United States. I don't think we have to worry.
I'm just asking you to clarify your position as well.
Nah, fuck them. No, fuck the old people. If they can't do
too.
4 years of public service, then you don't get to vote.
They have
Tough
just
shit.
as much responsibility, absolutely.
I
But Connor, before-
actually agree with the citizenship test because I think that a better understanding of the civics of the United States is essential, especially since we now have a criminally, or like a president or presidents in general are immune from criminal prosecution now, which I am sure you're not a fan of, Connor.
Yeah, this is largely a meme position. If I could be a dictator, I would. I won't be. So please do not lose any sleep over my dictatorial aspirations.
But before we move on from this question, I just want to say it's really, I hate to burst your bubble or say this, Connor, but from almost everything you've said tonight, most of what you said sounds in agreement with true feminism, and I appreciate your viewpoints on it.
Listen, man. Here's another thing. Before we move on from that,
Yeah.
I was just reading this with my chat earlier today. If you go back to the Bible, oftentimes the scripture that's most used in order to justify male dominance over women is women or wives, you must submit to your husbands. But then if you read the exact next paragraph, is about how men need to love their women as if they were a part of the same flesh, as if they were made of one body, as if they were the same being. And so even Christianity, arguably compared to the paganism that preceded it, Christianity was vaguely feminist.
We must
Howard
go
the
to the next
Christians.
one. This one from Basil Problem, like I said, real nasty. He says, Jen, please tell us more about, quote, conformal thermodynamic resonance. But you only get 30 seconds, Jen. It's got to be super pithy.
Okay.
You have a photo of it. Wow. How
Yeah,
convenient.
so that's one way. I would say that's probably the easiest way to look at it. It's dimensional principle, goes along with my quantum periodic table. I talk about this all the time. You can check out my channel for more information. But basically, 3 + 1 is a fundamental property of the universe, and we can use it to derive all sorts of interesting things from biology to physics.
You got it. Thank you very much. The Cheap Chimp says, this is peak Counterpoints argumentation. Wow, you have such a fan. This one from, by the way, William and Garrett, do you guys have links for channels?
Yes, FreeWill. I think.
Okay, what's your handle on YouTube? It's a
Free-
yes or no, Garrett.
Yeah, I really don't.
Okay.
FreeWill full.
Willful. Okay, thank you for that.
I
And-
would love to start a YouTube channel, but I need better equipment first.
It'll happen.
no rush. You don't have to have one. A lot of guys come on just because guys and gals love it for the love of the game. Basil Problem says, Counterpants, do you have a job other than streaming? Wow.
No, I say so. Just to share some of my professional history, since he asked, anyways, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, 4 years getting my degree. I worked the entire time in the private sector. I did 4 years in law enforcement. I did 4 years in construction administration, and then in April of 2025, I went full time as a content creator, and I have successfully paid my bills since April with my income from the internet. So no, I don't have another job, and I'm damn proud of it.
That's awesome. And not only that, but even Lord says, don't worry, he's just a troll. So Jen is being a good female being silent. W Jen. Although they were actually cheering for you. I think it's meant in an endearing way, even if it doesn't come off that way. Jen's a good sport. She's not easily bothered. Even
No,
Lord
she's
thinks
laughing.
Thanks for your super sticker, even Lord. Let me check if we had any last questions come in. I've got all the links updated. Thank you guys. Folks, I have to tell you about a couple of things. One is check out our guest links. Even if you don't agree with them, there's value in hearing their positions straight from them, because it's not somebody else paraphrasing it in a way that's like totally straw manning it or even like vaguely straw manning it. So check out their links. And folks, I'm for real. DebateCon 6, we had somebody during the actual stream. I think Basil, he wasn't making it up. We saw somebody grabbed a ticket right now during the stream. You don't want to miss out. It is going to be huge. This is a 2-day debate conference. Meet your favorite debaters and see these fiery debates live. But if you're like, dang, it's impossible, James, I can't. I got to work. I work on weekends. Join our channel memberships at the final word level. You'll get to watch all the debates live from the comfort of your very own home, eating popcorn, ice cream, you name it. I want to say a huge thank you to our guests. It has been a tremendous debate. William, Garet, Jen, and Counterpoints, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for
My
having me.
pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. James.
My pleasure. Yes, it's strange hearing that, but I will be back in a moment, folks, with updates about DebateCon and much more, including a new debate that's about to be added to the schedule. So stick around and I'll be back in about 24 seconds. Thanks, guys. That was a tremendous debate.
How much is
Appreciate you.
the final word membership level
$14.99.
per month?
Yes.
Oh,
What you can do is like hey, just sign up and then just cancel it after the
Come on,
conference.
bro. It's a Netflix membership. What's the problem?
there is no problem. I just wanted to know how much it was because I haven't missed a single debate out of a debate convention yet. And like I told you in our last one, I've been watching your channel since for at least 5 years.
That's based. I appreciate you watching so much because it is.
And-
I love doing it. It is fun.
And I actually wish you would go back to saying
He's
at
only
the
got
end,
24
keep
seconds, man.
sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. I loved that phrase. That was so awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate. I will get it back in there. But thank you guys for coming on. I'll let you guys go. And I hope
Thanks
you have
for
a great
having
night.
me. Thanks for having me. It's really great to meet everyone.
It was
All
nice
right.
meeting you too.
Yeah,
Have a
good
great
meeting you
night,
too,
guys.
Jen. Good meeting
I
you,
enjoyed this.
Connor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Looking forward to
guys.
the next one.
Bye, doctor.
Take care. Have a
Bye,
good night.
Doc.
All right, guys. Let me go full screen. Weirdly enough, let me exit this. Then Kylo is watching, or Kyla is watching. Kyler stream sniping Connor on modern day debates. That's interesting. Should I check my Discord and see if she wants to fight? That'd be fun. It'd be fun to fight. I'll DM Kyla real quick. It's been a while since we've talked. Kyla. Erudite. Yo, you wanna yap real quick? Question mark. And then I just wanna shout out. Thank you for all the support. Excuse me. Patriarch gifted 20 memberships. Insane support. Thank you, King. Numinax gifted $20. I already forgot everything the First Lady said. And then women, Discord kittens, and e-girls are ruining your men. Get to work till it's resolved. Feminism bad. Just kidding. Lol. Hey, man, I think I like to think that I struck a balance there. And then Anonymous Chatter gifted 20 memberships as well. The only reason why I've been able to stay full-time since April is because of you guys' financial support. So obviously, Valor Media Network gave me a small salary to, kick everything off. But realistically, the reason why I've remained employed, is because of your guys' generous support. And then also your generous support has helped me with Valor Media Network really only covers enough in order for me to be able to pay my bills. You guys watching, consuming, super chatting on the main channel. And then also, in my stream room, come in. I don't know if I have Erudite. Can I get a link? Oh, there we go. Nice. Thank you. She might literally be sniping. All right. Snipe. Streamer room. Open waiting room. Can I join? There we go. I'm in open waiting. Christian Blairs for $50 says the sex bots will destroy society. AI better convince the straight women to be bi-curious. Indeed. Sex bots will destroy
What's up,
us.
nerd?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
How was your PowerPoint debate?
Oh my God. Hold on. Let me get into the room somehow. And then I'm gonna turn on my camera too. I don't know if you can turn on your camera, but I'll
Yeah, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Am I? Oh shit.
Fucking idiot. God.
Show more. Donner Jack. What about now?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good now.
Let me. Add you.
Hi.
Yeah, I didn't have nobody told me that a PowerPoint was necessary for the debate. That was fucking crazy.
That girl, every time she's debated, I've checked out the stream a few times when she's there. She has a PowerPoint every single time. And I don't know why they haven't told her to get rid of it because they are so slow.
Tell me that's not like the most like autistic shit you've ever seen in your entire life. And I'm
It's
not
the
even trying to be
most-
mean. I'm just saying like
No.
opening a debate, I was like point. And then it was like PowerPoints. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, yeah.
It's pretty powerful. Oh,
How
what we got
you
debating
living?
about? I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. Today I've been very grumpy. I had a very annoying thing that happened today that I don't want to get into, but I'm otherwise on the ups.
Okay. How was
On the ups.
Empath Chan / Darius / Unfuck America / Steven?
So didn't even know who she was. Darius only came for like 30 minutes because he came so late to the event. The event was basically wrapping up when Darius walked up.
Okay.
I didn't know who she was because I'm not terminally online. So Darius was like, "Who's that girl?" And I like looked over and it was her, but I had no idea. I thought he was pointing at some blonde chick, and I was like, I don't know. Do you want to introduce yourself? I thought he was like wanted to hit on her because she like I thought he was pointing to a blonde girl that was in between us who was really cute, and I was like, I don't know, some girl, go talk to her. And he invites her over, and at some point he keeps dodging. He won't tell me who this person is, and she's like standing in front of me. I don't know who Empath Chen is. I'm not terminally online. I don't know any of this shit. I didn't know she fucking spits on old people and brown people.
I didn't know that.
Any of this shit.
I didn't know that. So hold on. So just full disclosure. You DM me and we're like, hey, who is this person? Was that before or after? I don't even know the
It was
timeline.
before, but I've never seen her face.
Okay. Then
Somebody had just told me about like Empath Chan drama. So
I didn't
texted
know
you
about the
it.
spitting.
Like, who is this person?
I didn't know about the spitting until Doobie of old people told me about it. And he sent me a
Classic
link
Doobie.
with a compilation of her walking up to random innocent people.
She's a
And
fucking piece of shit, which I wish I
Dude.
had known before. I found this all out. So after she calls Darius the N-word, where she's like wandering around, she keeps
Which
saying
is
that he's, like,
wild.
harassing
Let's
her,
be
which is
real.
wild.
wild.
I was like packing up like cords and shit. She says the N-word, and I'm like, okay, weird. And then I think I just say to her, I'm like, if you don't want him recording you, probably stop wandering over in front of the camera. She calls him an N-word, and then he like beaks off, and then she walks away, like kind of like runs / walks away.
so
And so this whole
what
time, I'm like,
total
who is
elapsed
this
time of the
crazy
drama is
person?
like what? Like 20 seconds, 30 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, like between like me meeting her for the first time and her like calling him the N-word was like probably 15 minutes, but she was just like scooting around. I didn't know who she was. Like nobody told me her name. And then at some point I figure out her name and I'm like, oh, it's that person, which I've heard the name of, but now I have a face to it. But I still don't know anything. I've just heard the name tossed around. And
No,
I
I'm
think I
with
saw you post a meme about like Empath Chan. So I was like, oh, seems like she's spooky, which is why I texted you to be like, who is this person?
That's
Then,
sorry, go ahead.
Then after she's gone, I'm walking with Steven and the crew to like pack up our shit and like dump it off in the truck. And I turned to him like, who is this person? And he's like, oh, she's a fucking crazy person, like a really bad person. I was like,
Wait,
and he's
Steven
like,
said that?
Yes, he said, yeah, like spits on people, like spits on brown people. And I was like, what the fuck?
Wait, hold on, but his okay, I just watched this today. This is where this is
I
so
think he said she's
confusing.
crazy.
I feel like
I think he said she's crazy. I shouldn't say he said she was bad. Somebody told me that she's a really bad person. I think Darius's henchman maybe told me about the spitting, and he told me she's a really crazy person.
okay. All right. I was about to say I feel like we need to all, kind of hopefully we don't need to understand everything. Hopefully this was kind of like a one and done situation. Hopefully this was, Steven and her hung out once, whatever they did. She went to a political event. She explored the United States of America. She decided, you know what, fuck this. And then she's out. And then hopefully that's the end of it. But
Yeah.
obviously like the drama, at least from the drama from my perspective is they posted obviously a picture of them hanging out together in Miami. And then I did the Walter White screaming meme because I had heard, that she was crazy and a Nazi and this, that, the other, but I didn't
was
really
in
have that
Miami
much
first?
context. What's that?
She was in Miami with him? So how'd you get to Las Vegas?
Don't know.
Okay.
Don't know, but see that.
That's crazy.
But listen, they had a picture together, and that picture was in Miami. And so, if that was the
You like
Vegas
recognize
event,
the windows.
yeah, I'm sorry I missed the Vegas event, but the
Oh, sorry, you didn't miss much.
okay,
It
then
was IP debate the whole time. So
who? What's that?
it was Israel Palestine almost the entire time.
Ah, that sucks. Anyways, but then the Darius thing happened, and I was gone for 3 days. I was in the woods in Georgia. My father-in-law, my
Being men.
my
Doing manly
wife's
things.
my wife's stepdad. He runs a 2-year inpatient faith-based drug rehab thing, and they do an annual retreat into the woods. And so it's like 4 days without a cell phone, without internet. So I was gone when this happened. And then when I got back on Monday, people were like, oh, Empath Chan was out at the Unfuck America event and she called Darius the N-word. And then Doobie sent me the Empath Chan compilation of her spitting on random people on the street. And I was like, oh, this person's a fucking piece of shit.
Crazy.
Why is Steven hanging out with this big piece of shit? I got a little bit pissed. But then yesterday, maybe today, I forget. Then I was like, well, maybe it's like a one and done. Maybe they just hang out once or whatever. And then she's not like, in orbiter or whatever. Not that it's my business to police who fucking orbits or whatever. But obviously, like, if you're hanging out with a motherfucker that's spitting on homeless people, that's not my vibe. I'll just put it that way.
Yep. Yep.
So that's not my vibe. Spitting on homeless people is not my vibe. But anyways, let's talk about feminism real quick. So I don't know how
is there
far.
more to the story? Is that just the end of it? Like it was just a one and done, or are they like?
I have no idea.
Still pals.
I have no
Okay.
idea. But you know what? Steven's a grown ass fucking man. He can figure it the fuck out. And if they hang out repeatedly, then I'll be like, all right, that's not my vibe. And then I assume God will teach Steven another lesson, like another hard fought lesson. So it's.
I think you have to learn the lesson for you to be being taught any lessons.
Well, right, but that's kind of my point. Is like, if you do the thing and then you suffer consequences, and then you do the thing and then you suffer consequences, and you do. And by the way, this is hanging out with BPD girls. I think that's maybe one of the main lessons. But if you do the thing, suffer consequences.
This one might be a little more than that.
What's that?
It's not. This might be a little more than that. It's not.
There's a few more things than that, but that's
horrific person.
That's one of the lessons that should be learned, I suppose. Yeah. And so Steven has to learn his lesson, and you know what? I can be his friend. And I don't need to.
He's not going to.
I don't need to save him from himself. I'm not Captain Save a Ho. I'm not Captain Save a Steve. I can't save Steve from himself. So
yeah, that's fair. Nobody can.
But unless you wanted to talk about anything else in related to that, I was just going to jump into the feminism thing.
Nope.
Okay.
I don't have any. UFA was like me. It was fine. It was fun. It was super fun hanging out with the UFA people. I love the UFA people.
Yeah, no,
she spent so much money, and it's fucking liberals all coming to fight Steve. And you're like, oh no, it's just the commies. Poor Z. She probably spent so much money organizing the whole thing. But it was fun for me. I had a great time.
Yeah. I wish. Captain Save a Bro. Somebody made it better. Captain Save a Bro instead of Save a Ho. That is better.
Save a Bro.
All right. Yeah, I'm not Captain Save a Bro. So yeah. So anyway, no, I want to hang out with Z again. I want to go to the Unfuck America thing, but I feel like they have enough logistical challenges that I don't want to inject myself into something. Although if they do an event in Florida, I will do it. So if they go to FSU or UF or anything like that, I'll drive. And then
they did Tampa. You just didn't know about it. Stupid.
What's that?
We did Tampa. That's how I.
Yeah, but wasn't that one of the first ones?
One of the first ones back after Dean dropped it, I think.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I think 2 weeks later I was shooting guns with Steven, so I wasn't too ass mad about missing Tampa. But anyways, I do want to hang out with Z. If they do another Florida event, I'll go, I'll drive. And then for feminism, okay. So how far did you get into the debate? You said that you saw the PowerPoints. How far did you get?
Not far. I opened it and I was like, oh my God, it's that Jen chick. Did she do the PowerPoint? And then I went to the beginning and saw the PowerPoint. And then I was like, not watching this, but they did it. So not at all. In fact, feminism is bad for dating culture is the topic.
Yeah, it was. And so my argument, which I don't know if we're going to have any contention, but my argument is effectively feminism in the steel man is going to be the equality of the sexes, right? Legal and social equality of the sexes, but then we don't agree on what that means. Whereas what I would say is that the extremes of feminism have been bad for dating culture. and that if you look at like male outcomes in dating, just the one that I pointed to that I think is super easy, is that male virginity aged 18 to 30 has increased by 10% over the past 17 years. And I think that's obviously like a dog shit stat.
I just don't know how much we blame. Like, is it feminism? Maybe, probably in part. How much is it just like fucking social media and dating apps, though?
That is the argument,
proliferation.
and that's actually where we got to in the debate. However, I guess the way that I would argue it, not that I'm debating you, but just the way that I would argue it in the debate, is that women being able to choose their sexual partners is a feminist argument, right? Women having license to wear what they want to wear, drink what they want to drink, hang out with who they want to hang out with. That is an argument for an egalitarian perspective on the sexes and the genders or whatever. And so as a result, if you want to say like, oh, well, that's our normalized culture, that's true. But this would not have been tolerated in the 60s and 70s. Like Hinge, Tinder, online pornography, all that kind of shit, that would not have been tolerated 2 decades ago. And so if you want to say that it is feminism, I think you could make an argument that it is. If you want to say it's not feminism, it's just technology, I think we're like, I don't think we're splitting hairs, but I think we're just arguing levels of degree.
So part of the issue that I kind of have with the feminism conversation is that there's a big difference between feminism and feminists, in the same way that there's a big difference between Christianity.
That
and
was their
Christians.
argument.
Yeah. So just so it's clear, there is bad forms of feminism that I don't agree with, right? Like when I define feminism, so my definition of feminism that I always use is the promotion and empowerment of women and femininity. I do not think feminism is about men. I don't think it should be about men. I don't think they are actually ever actively trying to benefit men in any single way. And I don't think that they have to. The issue is they need to stop vilifying men when they have like meninisms equivalents. And I think some forms of feminism is just like blatant misandry and gender opportunism. And I hate that form. I think there's a lot of gender opportunism, particularly that's popular amongst like young women in like the dating scene. Is just like, there's very much this like desire to have like all of the benevolent sexist things still like accessible to them, chivalry and infantilizing them and like lowering their responsibility. But at the same time, they like want all of the benefits that feminism has garnered for them, which would be like equality and mutual respect. And you're an autonomous, fully capable adult human being that we should respect as a result of these things. And so I'm of that camp. I want women to be treated as autonomous adult human beings that should be respected. But that also means that when they fuck up as adult human beings. And you know, all of the litanies that come with it. You're responsible for your behavior fundamentally. But again, the dating issue, like feminism's been growing. There's been bad forms of feminism through every single wave of feminism. I don't think that I don't know if there's anything unique about this wave of feminism that would explain the dating issue that we're seeing and the virginity and the like dating gap, basically. I really think that social media is a better explanation.
Yeah, what I was going to ask. So I think that's a fairly accurate description that I agree with. And also, you know, first wave, second wave, third wave. You know, my parents were born in 55. And I think like Ruth Bader Ginsburg was arguing as late as the 60s for women to be able to have credit cards opened in their name without getting permission from their husbands first. So that's kind of like the how far back. And I also think it's a funny historical tidbit that we gave the right to vote to black men before we gave the right to vote to white women. I think that's fucking crazy. Like I thought we were way more racist than we were sexist, but apparently we were way more sexist than we were racist. But the point being that
wasn't that what led the suffragettes to wanting it?
Sorry, what's that?
Specific? Wasn't that what led some of the suffragettes? Like a lot of
oh yeah, they
were
were like, why the fuck don't we have rights? What the fuck? So yeah.
Specifically, why do we have no rights and black people do have rights?
Well, and so the question, when we move into the modern movement, I don't, or the modern era, I don't know if we agree with this, but the question that I was going to pose to you is, how much do you think the red pill, MGTOW, men going their own way, incel, volcel, all these different movements, you know, Andrew Tate, how much do you think that they're like a development of the material conditions, so to speak, and how much do you think that they're like a mirror to toxic forms of like feminism? Because I think the verbiage that a lot of these people use, the propaganda that a lot of them use, is effectively saying that they're meninist, you know, they're male advocates. That's how they frame themselves.
Yeah. So to make sure I'm understanding your question, you're basically asking, to what extent is Meninism and the toxic forms of it a mirror?
Well, yeah. Do you believe their
forms of feminism?
bullshit? Do you believe their propaganda that they're actually the mirror to feminism, or do you think that that's just propaganda?
I'm sure that their intent is to be the mirror to feminism. I think the issue is that most of the men that would say that probably don't know dick all about feminism. They've probably never read a feminist writer ever. They've never engaged with anything beyond like pop feminism. And by feminism, they mostly mean feminists. They don't mean feminism. And so, like, I'm sure that is their intent. And there's going to be some more informed and less informed. But I think, like, most of the men doing good work for young men and, like, talking about male issues would never call themselves meninists right now. Like, I'd be pointing to, like, Chris William and, like, people like that.
Yeah, no, that weirdly enough, one of the things that I found most interesting is that bit like what I view as like non-toxic male whatever like archetypes, they're oftentimes like biblical. They're oftentimes rooted in religion. Something that Jordan Peterson said is that like the male archetype within the Bible is the shepherd. So it's somebody who is fierce enough to fight the predators of the wilds. It's somebody who's rugged enough in order to survive the wilds, but it's somebody who's nurturing enough in order to take care of the vulnerable. And there was some stuff like that was like echoed in my little retreat thing that I did with my father-in-law, where effectively it wasn't just about, oh, I'm the biggest, toughest guy. I can get the most women. I can do this. I can do that. Matter of fact, within the masculinity that they were modeling within the retreat, they were basically saying that was like obvious cope. Like it's cope to constantly try to prove your masculinity by never being vulnerable, by always pursuing material possessions, by always pursuing endless amounts of women. You're effectively insecure in what it is to be a man by constantly needing to prove it. And I think that's just such a opposed perspective to, let's say, the Andrew Tate or red pill version of masculinity. It almost seems childish compared to the philosophy that I'm pursuing.
I mean, I would say that like the red pill in the same way. So like what I would say is that like the meninists are very comparable to like the worst of the feminists a lot of the time, right? And frankly, it's born out of gender opportunism and immaturity, like 9 times out of 10, right? Like a lot of feminists that are gender opportunists and are super misandrist, when I like listen to them, I'm like, oh, you're just like a baby. You're just like a sweet baby child. You have like no idea what you're talking about. You've like barely had to like make tough calls in your life. I'm sure you've gone through tough things, but you've never had to like, you've never known the moment of looking at somebody that you hate entirely and you know that the moral thing to do is forgive them anyways. Like I don't think you've experienced that yet.
Yeah, but isn't that like a fairly Christian moral outlook though? Because as an example, like
no, I think this is not Christian at all. The forgiveness maybe specifically, but when I say this, I mean you've never had a moment where your principles have been tried in a hard way and you've chosen your principle anyway.
Yeah, no, I hear that. The place where I want to agree with you real quick is just that like I think a lot of this stuff is rooted in trauma. I think it's rooted in rejection. I think it's rooted in high school, middle school, adolescent rejection, and so it's kind of like a compensation in order to become the archetype of what you think the ultimate, like, you know, archetypical sexual model is. I think that's a lot of it. But then when it comes to the forgiveness thing, I'm kind of I want to poke at that, because for me, you know, you're saying like, oh, the principle would be to forgive. What I'm finding increasingly is that people,
well, not in this case. I'm just giving forgiveness as a principle to stand upon.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do so. But I don't think forgiveness is related to the feminists or meninism very much at all.
Sure. Then I guess that's what I was curious about is excuse me, tested principle. So with tested principle, what I'm finding is that a lot of people, and this goes to Steve, and I'm not trying to be overly critical, I'm not trying to start shit or whatever, but I think that he has a coherent moral worldview but that coherent moral worldview is effectively eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. It's very Old Testament. It's basically like, if you wrong me, I can wrong you, and who gives a shit? Whereas I would say, at least the way that I was raised, and presumably the way that you were raised, is that hurting the person who's hurting you doesn't necessarily solve the problem. If anything, it oftentimes starts a cycle of like reciprocal violence that doesn't end, or reciprocal grievance that doesn't end. And so, I guess I'm just kind of asking you, how popular do you think it is for the pagan eye for an eye morality versus what I would say is like probably the preferable Christian morality?
I mean, I think that like fundamentally, like rehabilitative justice is like built on this presumption of like forgiveness and like the Christian morality. Like, I don't even think it's a secular perspective to say that like, what's that quote? The eye for an eye, the whole world is blind, or whatever. And obviously I don't know if you've ever seen, I forget which movie it is, but it has this great line where it's like, I hate that quote because it doesn't leave the world blind. One guy's got one fucking eye left and now he can dodge everything. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Yeah, but that's a good analogy, I think, for like where we're at politically, where it very much feels like both sides are being like, an eye for an eye, fuck you. And it's like and they're just hoping that they're going to have the one eye left.
And Christians are doing that. That's what's driving me crazy. Is I go onto social media and it's fucking Lauren Chen and Matt Walsh and all these fucking Christian nationalist douchebags, and they're all like, fuck poor people. I hope they starve. If they don't work, then I hope they die. And then they're like, you tried to cancel me, I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to get you fired, motherfucker. And I'm like, whoa, like, number one, if you feel that way, yeah, sure. But how is why would you even make your faith a part of your public persona at all if you don't represent the most like deepest parts of the faith? That's what frustrates the fuck out of me.
Yeah, well, Christians being shitty people who don't stand by their principles, take one for 10,000. Pretty much like the most common thing ever, especially fundamentalist Christians. They're just like some of the worst people ever, but that's a different topic for a different day.
Gotcha. Well, if you just want to hit feminism, then
feminism.
Yeah,
I mean, we can go off. I know we were talking about feminism, so I don't want to.
No, we can bring it back because realistically, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'll tell you my Machiavellian game. My Machiavellian game is I think that you're too tolerant of sexual degenerate liberals. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to force you to talk about Christianity. That way they get uncomfortable. That's what I'm trying to do. So, but we can move to feminism. So with feminism, I don't
put my religious views on other people. So
yeah, well, difference between you and me.
I don't think there's a good secular argument to be super anti-sex. I think it's like you can be anti-dangerous sex, you can be anti-risky sex, but just like anti-sex and slut shaming, I just like when secular people do it, I'm just like, where is this coming from? What grounds do you have on this? And they're like, chlamydia. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course, spreading chlamydia is bad. That's like biowarfare. Yeah, I agree. Spreading chlamydia is not a good thing. But just like slut shaming generally, and you're I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's really strange.
We could get into correlation and causation and all that bullshit. But that's what happened with our chicken debate. Our chicken debate. You said like what was it? Like a dead chicken. You can do whatever you want to it, and it has no moral content. And we fought about that for a while. But back to feminism. With feminism, I suppose what I was arguing too is, so if you want to say it's more technological than it is actually feminism, it's the dating apps, it's the internet, it's the modern sex culture, it's the hookup culture, whatever. I would root it back to some of that stuff being enabled by emancipatory feminism, where you're trying to free women to do whatever they can do within a free society. But I don't really care to split the hairs on that. But what I would say with feminism, as far as like the negative things that we've seen recently, I think Me Too actually probably captures it perfectly. Me Too, documenting the sex abuse of men in positions of power, leveraging money, clout, and influence in order to gain sexual access to women with less power than them. That's something that should be exposed, criticized, socially changed. However, it extended out to the point where, like, as an example, Aziz Ansari, like a Indian comedian from Parks and Recreation, was canceled on social media for a couple of weeks, effectively because he went on a bad date. There was a girl who went back to his place. They were drinking, they were hanging out, they were fooling around. She didn't really know if she wanted to hook up. And then halfway through the date, she was like, you know what, I'm not ready. And then he was like, yeah, okay. And it was like awkward and uncomfortable and all that kind of shit. And, you know, maybe he tried to make a move again and it didn't go anywhere, but he wasn't like a rapist. But the way that he was treated was like he had done something wrong besides courting a woman, trying to engage in sex, then the woman saying, no, I'm not ready to go that far, and then it getting awkward afterwards.
Gotcha. I mean, I don't know anything about that situation because my chat's being like, that's an oversimplification and he harassed her. So I don't know anything about it. So I guess
that's what I'm talking about, though, because if you go so far as to say that courting a woman, getting drinks, going back to your place, hooking up, and then the woman cutting it off at a certain point and it being awkward after that point, then you're kind of eliminating the awkwardness of the courting process.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done this thing where like, so somebody in my chat saying like enthusiastic consent. Enthusiastic consent would be like the best bar for things to be. The issue is that like, especially when you're dating young people are too nervous to give enthusiastic consent because there's a lot of risk if you like seem too over enthusiastic about hooking up and fucking. You might be a dirty little whore and he might not be into you and then it's really embarrassing, right? So like enthusiastic consent is a really nice thing. The problem is that it's not realistic for like a lot of couples, a lot of people that end up in sexual engagements. It's a little bit more like slippery and hard to know. And I think one of the issues that we've done in society, particularly amongst the left, which is very religious of us in this way, is we've taken anything that isn't like the most morally good action, like the most moral, and then we've said anything that's not that is like bad. And we've really vilified the morally neutral. And I think this has happened a lot in sex, right? I think there's a lot of morally sexually neutral stuff that happens all the time that people are like, well, that's a little weird. And you're like, again, weird doesn't mean bad. Weird doesn't mean bad. Bad means bad. But the problem that we have is like with sexual consent, for example, the line at where something becomes bad is really slippery. It's really hard to know. And the stakes are really high, right? Because if you have a bad sexual interaction, well, if that guy never finds out, but the girl lives through it, that might be like a key trauma for her for the rest of her life, right? That she like remembers. And so there's like this really slippery situation where it makes sense why people just want the best, the most ethical to be the minimum, because the most ethical means that there's no errors, right? There's no like what we would in like stats call like the type 2 error, right? The person who like kind of fell through the cracks and the innocent man put in jail, right? Like we're trying to minimize that as much as possible with sexual consent. And I don't know if this is like a pure feminist thing. It is feminism in large part that's driving it. But I think the issue is that like the feminist movement is often led, like the people who rise to the top of a lot of these like gender movements or like even just like demographic movements, I find are like oftentimes like some of the most antisocial people ever. Like they're not the insecure kid that was bullied. They were the bully. They were like the narcissistic piece of shit who saw this gender opportunity as an opportunity to champion themselves and rise up to the top quickly and stomped on everyone on the way down, which is why all of the leaders of like a lot of the pop feminists are fucking assholes. And a lot of the popular meninists are fucking sex traffickers, you know? And so we have this issue where it's being led by some of the most antisocial people ever. And then we're wondering like why the movement goes bad. But the issue is that like what we want to do is like toss out feminism, which I think is really not good. I think feminism's great. Like,
yeah, that was
as a woman. I'm a big fan.
That's where the conversation ended up too, because they were like, oh, well, do you want to just like throw out feminism root and branch? And I was like, no, like I want women to be able to get credit cards without their husband's permission or whatever, you know, like I want women to be able to vote. But at the same time, part of what you said, where women want the privilege, but they don't want the responsibility, that was a substantive part of my criticism. And then also one of the things like with your enthusiastic consent chatter, I'm just going to be real. Like in the thousands, pretty much the way that it went was you go out with your friends, male and female. You get a little bit tipsy. Maybe somebody's making eyes at you from across the bar. You're probably not blackout or brown out. I don't think I was ever that way. But then if somebody takes like a physical interest in you, then you just reciprocate that until eventually you start making out. And then maybe it goes to something more. That's basically it. Nobody stopped in the thousands or early tens, and it was like, may I touch you here? Do I have your permission to grab your thigh? Like, nobody did that. It was all physical communication. And so effectively what would happen is, if somebody didn't want something, let's say that you were making a move and you were going for whatever base analogy you want, what would happen is, as you were physically moving towards that base, the person would say, hey, listen, I like you a lot, but I'm not ready for that right now. You know, and that would basically be the way that the interactions went. And so this whole thing, I would say, with the enthusiastic consent, when I see, you could Google this stat just to double check me, but when I see a 10% rise in male virginity aged 18 to 30 over the past 17 years, and then I also talk to some of these young men and they say, listen, video games is easier, smoking weed is easier, there's no social anxiety, I'm not going to get blasted on social media, I'm not going to get fired, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, then I think what's effectively happening is the most antisocial men, because they're so worried about failing socially or being rejected or getting blasted on social media, they've said that, well, fuck it, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm just not even going to socially engage. And that is like a horrible social side effect that's going to have a whole bunch of unintended consequences.
Yeah, but again, how much of this is feminism and how much of this is the confluence of feminism between technology, right? Like, there's so many things that we want to like lay at the feet of ideology.
I just want to say this so my
Yeah,
chat can
of
hear me.
course.
We agree it's a problem. So regardless of who we blame, we don't have to blame anybody. We could just say that this is a social phenomena. My question would be, how do you fix that? My answer is tell men to stop being pussies, but that's not a very good answer.
Well, one of the answer is that, right? Like, one thing that, so when I'm talking to like small content creators, so I'm running a program for small content creators right now, and we had a session on networking, and I led it because I'm a fucking giga chad at networking. I'm really good at talking to people. I don't really care about how popular we are. I'm able to kind of like mingle really well with like some of the most famous people, and it doesn't faze me. And one of the lessons that I've learned in this is that if you're the type of person who is like too nervous because you don't want to bother them, you recognize, oh, it's a famous person, or in this case, it's a girl. This is the analogy, making the analogy here for the autistic people in the chat who won't follow it. That person wants to be approached by normal people, and they definitely don't want to be approached by weirdos who will never take no for an answer. And the issue is that every single person is like, oh, like, should I go talk to Amaranth? Like, I don't want to bother her. You're the person she wants to talk to. And the person who's being like, there's Amaranth, I'm going to go bother her and linger around her forever until she gets sick of me, she doesn't want to talk to you, right? So you've got this pressure keg where the most shameless or like the most antisocial people are like now representing the group dominantly because they're the only ones attempting to make moves. And so like for a lot of men, like, the don't be a pussy, it's like, it's less about being, I'm going to be more gentle here as the female character here. It's less about being like, don't be a pussy. It's like, recognize that the fear that you're having is a really good instinct that you're on the right track already. Because one of the most important things you could do as a man in these types of dating relationships is make no's for women really easy. If all you prioritize in dating is making women's no's really easy for them to give you, you are going to be clear of most of those issues, because you're going to be looking for body language no's, and you're going to be looking for cues that they're disinterested. And when you see it, you can just back off. That is a good time to ask them directly, because at some point being direct is useful. Because when we look at the 2010s, yeah, you would just like grab her thigh. Okay, there was also just a lot of women being grabbed at and sexualized in ways that they absolutely didn't want to, as somebody who went through the 2010s, and it was fucking awful. I didn't enjoy the amount of sexualization that when I go out now, I experience a lot less of it. I definitely do, right? And so I guess, yeah, the caution would be, if you're feeling that fear, you're the person that should be doing the approaches. Like, that fear cues you that you have the
I think
this ready.
I think that's, though, just speaking from personal experience. So I had two brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and my parents are also like super Christian conservative. So I wasn't really like raised with, let's say, a in-depth social sexual education. Like what I learned through trial and error. But I think that one of the things that is kind of like a hard learned lesson that I'm just going to repeat is the basically, like, probably the easiest way, I hate to say this, but the easiest way to like get sexual access is not to be obsessed with it. That's like one of like the things. It's like when you're desperate, when you're just like constantly out there looking for a woman to talk to, and it seems like you have this like mission in your head, like I need to get somebody to go to bed with me or whatever. People can like smell that desperation. They can like smell the social manipulation. They can smell all that crap, and they basically reject you. Whereas oftentimes, if you're more just, you know, you're out there to have fun, you're out there to hang out with your friends, have a couple of drinks, socialize, bullshit, whatever, then typically people can kind of feel the vibe of who you are, what you're about, whether or not you're a good person, this, that, the other. And so by taking the sexual pressure off of the situation, I think you're more likely to have people who are genuinely interested in you kind of reciprocate, you know, communication and figure out who you are, and then decide whether or not they want to invite you into an intimate situation. And I think that's really tough for, especially maybe if you're like, I would say I was maybe like 15 to 18, 15 to 19, when you're like a super young man and you have no experience whatsoever. There is a pressure to be a sexual, like to achieve sex, because if you don't, there's something fundamentally fucking wrong with you. Like you're a broken individual if you cannot lose your virginity. And so I feel like
Is
that
how society views you.
What's that?
Is how society will view you.
Yeah, but I think it's also an internal thing too, where you're like, oh, well, I know people who are getting laid who fucking suck. What sucks with me? And so it's like a self-esteem thing. And
yeah, it's the same. It's totally understandable, right? It's the same as like women who haven't been able to get a boyfriend by like 18. They're like,
right. They're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. I think it's totally fair. It's just, to me, like the anxiety that men feel, it's like, it's understandable why you feel that way. It's just not necessarily a bad thing, like in and of itself, right? The anxiety should be something.
No, I like what you said, which is like, that's going to make you more cautious within those social circumstances. I think that's good. That's a good analysis.
Well, not just that it'll make you more cautious, but there should be, I'm the person who would even be worried about harming somebody else. It's like, you're already 10 steps ahead of all the freaks that a lot of people are talking about. Like, you're already 10 steps ahead because you're anxious about doing harm to others. Part of what you're anxious about is not doing harm and getting fucking clapped anyways, which is very tricky. And the issue is like, there isn't really a solution for this, right? Other than like really trying to vet what you're doing, really trying to take like obvious no cues and building up a fair bit of rapport and doing a bunch of cold approaches and warm approaches. So you're really good at reading social language and to like kind of figure it out. And if you're too autistic to figure that out, you have to use explicit consent because you're nerfed.
You know, here's another thing that's really funny, by the way. My wife, Victoria, she not forced me, but she asked me to watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette with her. And I couldn't do it because I was just like cringing the whole time. I'm like watching these people in these awkward social situations. This sucks. I don't want to watch this. It's cringe, whatever. But she was like, okay, have a beer, you know, just hang out with me, have a beer. And so I started watching it. And what was so interesting about the way that it was shot is that The Bachelor and the Bachelorette, I swear to God, it's like shot for effectively to be like a crash course on body language and bullshit. And that's what it really is. It's not about no,
it's psychoanalyze.
Yeah, it's not about who's rich, who's handsome, who's powerful, who's sexy, who's going to be like, I mean, that's like part of the game. Part of the game is finding the best partner that you possibly can within the situation. But what it really is, when they're like zooming in on like, you know, like pinched like squinting eyes, or they zoom in on like a lip curl or something like that. The whole reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to give you effectively like a body language crash course on who's full of shit. And so by watching 2 or 3, you know, seasons with the wife, I felt like, I was like, oh my God, she has like, you know, I mean, we were probably late 20s at the time. She has like a decade or two of social education on body language, on who's full of shit. And this is such a common like female trope to be into these kinds of shows that women aren't really like, they're not really like, maybe this is sexist, but I don't feel like they're really evaluating the words that are being said. They're oftentimes really super fixated on how it's being said. And that's kind of like how they smell you.
Yeah, well, 80% of communication is nonverbal, right? So, like, what you're really saying is women have been training for this for 15 years, and men are fucking dumbasses who don't think about it because they're not
Right.
socialized to, right? Which is why every man, when they start watching these shows with their wife, they're like, oh, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun. Because Nick was the same. He was like, oh, I've never watched these things. And me and my roommate, we wanted to watch Bachelorette. It was like her favorite show. We started watching it, and now he's like super into all of these like types of shows. Like, he won't choose to watch them on his own, but he will always watch them with me. And all the commentary is psychoanalyzing, because women are not just doing it for those shows. When we like leave a social group, we all go back and we talk about what everyone's nonverbal cues were and what it means about them, right? And sometimes we're right, and sometimes we're very wrong. And men are super nerfed because they're not even beginning to think about this. But I don't know how much this is biological. I think a lot of this is just socially trained into men, because you see like a lot of like men, for example, that have a lot of sisters, for example, they're way more tuned into this, or men who are very close to their mothers.
Men with sisters are oftentimes the most dangerous. Like I knew a guy, his name was Gabe, and he was raised with like 2 or 3 sisters, and he was like the king of like female manipulation because
Yeah.
he just like he understood the body language and social cues and stuff. And so his communication, which I did think was quite slimy, but his communication wasn't what he was truly expressed. Like he wasn't saying what he was thinking. He was saying what he thought would make a woman comfortable to give her like him like sexual access. And he was like a good looking guy. So it's not like he needed to lie or manipulate in order to get laid. But he just did it because there was like some level of like gamesmanship to like female manipulation that he just enjoyed. And so that's where I would say, like, and also for females, like, you know, not trying to go, I know you're saying that you don't know how much of it's biological. But for females, I think that like the stakes are so much higher, right? Like getting a bad partner could mean life or death. It could mean pregnancy. It could mean disease. And not that males don't share those risks, but pregnancy is not as big of a risk for a male as it is for a female.
See, this is why I don't find this compelling, is because like,
why not?
well, women, yeah, they have to be able to socially read other human beings for like care, right? And like partner selection. Men need to be able to read other social partners for things like escalating violence or violence threat, right? They need to be able to read when somebody's about to swing on them, because males are mostly going to be the ones competing for things. They also need to be able to read body language well enough to know when they are getting, you know, assent from the woman for relationship.
Maybe I'm projecting my bullshit. Maybe I'm just hella autistic.
I just think it's socialized. I think we like socialized men to be like slightly having the autism bug.
Yeah.
Because like I was raised by my dad. I was a lot closer to my dad. So like I communicate in a very masculine way, and I've had to learn a lot more like code switching to like what we would call like womanese, which I actually, just so it's clear, I think womanese is just more sophisticated communication, like by and large. I think like some of the directness that they lose is like unhealthy. But most healthy women are also quite direct as well, right? Like when they've like worked past like the shit where we tell women that they're not allowed to be mean or ask for things. I really do think that like women have a more sophisticated communication system because they are paying close attention to the nonverbals, which can be amazing when somebody's having a hard time communicating and they can pick up on the nonverbals to kind of like mind read them. It's a pain in the ass when you're trying to shield them from how annoyed you are at them, and they can pick up on it anyways because they can read all of your nonverbals.
Well, and that's where I would go back to like advice for young males or whatever. If the vibes are off, like even if you don't understand why the vibes are off or whatever, then just read your instincts and go, okay, well, it was nice talking to you. Have a good night, you know, because you're not really gonna, if there's somebody who's interested in you, and they're genuinely interested in you, and the vibes are a little bit off, and you say, well, hey, it was cool talking to you. You have a good night or whatever. Then oftentimes what will happen is they'll find a social excuse to re-engage with you. And so you don't really lose much by walking away. Whereas if the vibes are off and you're kind of like insisting upon the conversation or you're insisting upon the social interaction, you can really like ruin a potential friendship or relationship or communication or whatever. And so I would just go back to that advice and kind of say that, you know, especially when you're young and you don't have any experience, it can feel like really desperate to try to communicate with someone. But basically like, follow your instincts, you know, and if you get rejected, guess what? That's part of the game. Getting rejected is just, maybe she wasn't right for you. Maybe you weren't right for her. It just is what it is, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would basically say that like, somebody pointed out that like studies show that like neither gender is very good at picking out when people are flirting. I think part of this is because social sophistication comes on multiple areas, right? Like men are actually pretty socially sophisticated with aggression, right? Like Nick, speaking of the Darius stuff, like I don't know if you ever saw the clip with Nick pulling the guys out of the fight and stuff like that.
I didn't.
Oh, okay, yeah. Nick was like intervened in a fight or whatever. But when I'm watching that clip, first of all, I would never involve myself because I'm a fragile little rabbit. But second of all, there's a lot of like subtle social cues that, like, to be honest, I'm not socialized to be good at because I don't have to think about violence very often. In fact, my only response when I see any cue of any violence is to like move away. I'm not looking for any sophisticated where Nick is going, no, actually, this guy's not trying to swing. He's trying to break it up. And I'm like, I don't know. I just see guys with bald fists like walking towards each other. I have no idea who's doing what, right? In the same way that like flirting is actually just another way to get socially sophisticated on. Like you have to learn how to do it, right? So like women are really good at emotionally communicating in a socially sophisticated way. We're good at like reading how people are feeling by and large. We're really good at like asking about it. This is like the classic trope, like women know things about their friends and men don't. I think all of this is fundamentally socialized, right? Flirting though, for example, men are very nervous and I understand it. The issue is that like half the time you're getting rejected. Like I think about myself when I was young, like God, poor men. Like I was the most like anxious, hot and cold woman ever that like, even if I was into you, like literally I was talking to one of my first like exes and like big puppy love situations. And we were talking about it like years later. And he was like, I actually didn't even realize you were into me until like 2 months after everything had kind of ended. And I was like, wait, none of this would have ever occurred if she wasn't into me. But that's because I was so flat and I was so like distant with like touch and stuff, right? So it's like guys have to remember that like half the shit that's going on is because like girls are insecure and they're nervous and they don't know how to communicate these things and they don't know how to be clear with the things, which is why like explicit communication can be useful. Yes, it can like result in the girl getting weird and not liking it, but it's like, fuck, if people are like weird about direct communication, that's a red flag. Okay, run away. Why would they ever be weird about direct communication?
Well, no, that actually goes back to another thing that I hate to say I learned like really, really late in life. I don't like it. But there was a conversation that I was having, weirdly enough, when I was transitioning into full-time content creation, where I felt like I was asking a potential business partner for investment. And I got done with the conversation with the wife, and she was like, "You never asked." Like I was like, no. Like I said, like I'm working on this project. You know, this is how much I would need. This is what I'm trying to do. Blah 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 blah. And she's like, "Yeah, but you never said, hey, do you want to go in on this project with me?" You never said that sentence. And so what ended up happening was I asked that person, I got rejected. But what ended up happening was the project, whenever you have like an entrepreneurial venture, it's actually easier when it's in the like, oh, in the future, I'll be able to do this thing. It's almost more pleasant when it's in the future part rather than the execution part, because when you're in the execution part, you actually have to make it work, which is a pain in the ass. So having like these vague, ambitious dreams is almost comforting because you never have to actually execute. But what happened was that person rejected. I asked the second person directly. They rejected it. But what happened was those no's solidified the idea. And then on my third ask, I got a yes. And then once I got my yes, I was able to go forward. And so moving it from the ephemeral into the real, that's what I would say with men too. If you conceptualize this, obviously I'm talking about an entrepreneurial venture, not like a relationship. But it's probably better if you feel like the vibes are good, you're being friends, whatever, it's probably better to ask and then get the no rather than to just leave the relationship in this like liminal space of like non-existent fantasy. Because then that's also, I think people call that non-existent liminal space fantasy. They call that the friend zone, where you never get a firm yes or no, but she kind of keeps you in the social orbit, and maybe you flirt, but maybe you're not flirting enough. And then she doesn't really know what you want. And then maybe she keeps you there on purpose, and maybe she doesn't. Maybe she has no fucking idea. The no's better than the liminal space.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I want to like give space to like the no, like people aren't adults. Like everyone is literally adults, but nobody's actually adults, right? Like if there was a world where if your friend approached you, was interested in you, was respectful about it, and you weren't into them, and you told them really respectfully as well, hey, I really appreciate it, I'm just not into you. There's a world that we can conceive of where that relationship can go back to like just being friends. And the reality is that everyone's too fucking childish to do that a lot of times. So like there does come the risk of realizing like the no that comes.
I was about to say, I don't really
from-
believe in like male and female friendship where like, like where it's like strictly platonic. Like obviously like people are married, people are like loyal to each other, all that kind of stuff. But I also don't think that like I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think that if one person is attracted, then let's just say it causes complex issues. I think we can at least say that.
I would agree. The issue is that like men will stick their dick into almost anything. So if he's willing to be friends with a girl, he's probably going to be willing to fuck her. And so then it's like, okay, well, if that just means that men can't have platonic relationships because they also might be open to fucking them, then I'd be like, okay, well, that doesn't mean it's not platonic, right? Like you can have a platonic relationship and also be like, yeah, I'd fuck him. It's never going to happen, but I'd fuck him. It just has to be the case, right? It just has to be the case, right? Otherwise, essentially what you're saying is like,
I'm sorry,
what you're saying is essentially,
it was funny.
For example, attractive women can't have male friends that are platonic. They just can't do it. And it's like, of course they can.
Okay.
Right? And also, of course, their male friends want to fuck them. It can also be platonic. It just has to be talked about. It's just also people aren't mature enough to do it a lot of the time.
Yeah, maybe that's more the thing. Danabo, my editor, but also Dylan Burns' editors. What complex issues? Expand further, Connor. I'm typing in all caps. Okay, so what I would say is, I don't have any girl space friends. Okay, I just don't. Okay, and I would not expect my wife to be comfortable with me hanging out with another woman solo, right? So professional stuff, husband's there, boyfriend's there, we're working on a project together, whatever, that's totally fine. But just having like a friend that is a girl that I can go out to lunch with or go out to dinner with, that's just not a thing. And I also don't think it's necessarily, I think that would be an unrealistic expectation to have on her part, where I'm saying like, oh, you just need to trust me to hang out with a member of the opposite sex who is attractive, but I'm only friends with. I don't think that's a thing.
That's crazy to me. Like, Nick and
I think the opposite is
totally
crazy.
Opposite. Yeah, like Nick and like the reality is like I trust Nick, and Nick trusts me, and like that's the beginning and the end of it. If I feel like
Nick,
my partner,
Nick, no jealousy, no nothing. He can just go hang out with a hot chick that he's friends with, and he's platonic.
Yeah.
He says he's platonic with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where I'm just going to say I think you have autism, but that's okay. We're just
maybe the issue is like I really trust Nick.
Nick's a great guy. I'm not talking shit on Nick. I'm just saying that I just don't think most people are mature enough.
I understand most people. I agree. Most people aren't mature enough. The issue is that I do think it's fundamentally like kind of a maturity thing, or like maybe like some couples have legitimate trust issues, right? Like if you've had like some weird issues around sexuality in the past, or like you started from cheating and stuff like that. There's reasons why couples might be extra cautious about sexuality and stuff like that. The issue is that like, if I feel like the only way I can trust Nick is so long as I like keep a bit of a tab on him and like somewhat like mitigate like the social spaces he's in, and I'm like, I don't really trust Nick at that point. I trust the rules I imposed around Nick and for him to respect those rules. And it's like, well, my rules with Nick are he's not allowed to fuck other women or start a romantic relationship with him. Those are my rules. And he has the same rules with me. And
but within that framework, and I'm really not trying to make it too awkward, but like within that framework, he could be like, oh, well, we didn't have sex, we did oral, and I didn't have any feelings. That's.
But in that framework, do you think that I would look at Nick and be like, oh, you loopholed it?
No, but like
no. Well, the issue is that like anybody who's
I think people are like that. I think
retards who are looking for loopholes are like that. But when your wife,
I know a lot of arslers. Let's put it that way. Like I know a lot of them.
Then their wife shouldn't trust them, because then they're not trying to stay true to their wife. They're trying to find a loophole where they can cheat on her and get in less trouble. And the issue is that I respect Nick's principles enough to know that he's not, I don't need to like walk down every litany of what type of touch is and isn't okay, because he understands what sex is and what sexuality is. And he understands that we don't do that with other people. So I trust him with
I'm
that.
happy
Also,
Nick's not
Nick and I are
autistic.
weird. We also accept that like flirting is just like a part of most adult interactions. I don't care if he flirts with, I've watched him flirt with people in front of me. I don't give a fuck at all. If I found out that he was fucking them, then I would have an issue.
Sure. I need to answer your chat.
I just
though.
think people can get there. Okay, go ahead.
General So says, "Oh, I thought you were friends with Lauren Southern." I am friends with Lauren Southern. However, I went on a work trip to Baltimore. I roomed with the men, not with Lauren, and I don't think we were ever in a social situation where the other work men were not present. So like there was never like an inappropriate hangout. Like it was a professional thing, and there were always other people present. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't
it's
go
just
on
like
a
me and
solo
Steven's
lunch
work
date.
relationship. Yeah, me and Steven's like entire friendship couldn't have existed if like Nick and I had these rules. Like, our one of our really close friends that we like rent from, I hang out with him alone all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just like have that mutual.
No, and I mean,
trust with
I love
each other.
Nick, so I'm not trying to talk shit. I'm just saying, I think that
I guess what I'm saying is it is possible.
I think
I do think it's
you
hard.
can say it's possible. I would say most people are not mature enough in order to handle the level of latitude that you and Nick give each other.
Probably, but they could be. I don't think like Nick and I are super special. Like I don't think we're like these uniquely chill, high trust people. Like
Sure.
I essentially think most people can get there.
Yeah, maybe
The
this
end of the story.
No, maybe this is just the little conservative thing in me. It's kind of like a Mike Pence thing, you know, where Mike Pence like won't go to lunch with like women without his wife present or whatever. I'm not that extreme, but at the same time, I just think it's easier to play it safe. But that's neither here nor there.
I think the biggest worries Nick has when it comes to like my like one-on-one interactions with men is he just like doesn't want me to get raped. Like that's about it. Like he's not worried about me just walking out on him. He's worried about me like getting taken advantage of, which is super fair. But that's just like that's a different issue entirely, right? And that's more of an issue of like safety. And I'm a really, really cautious
and it's not trusting you. It's not trusting the other man, which makes sense.
Exactly. But the other rules are fundamentally not trusting you, right? It's saying like, well, I don't trust you to go on a work lunch because you might catch some feels. And it's just like, if Nick caught some feels, I trust him to work through it and be like, actually, I'm married to Kyla and we have an incredible relationship. And the end.
Well, God bless Nick. And you know what? I love Nick and shout out to Nick. So
and me.
What?
Okay, I'm the same. I would trust him. I trust the same as Nick.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Kyla as well.
I'm also trusting.
Okay. Okay. So getting back to the feminism thing though, just so maybe we could put a bow tie on it. I probably do have to go to bed eventually. I guess my thing is I feel like the pendulum, particularly with like Me Too or whatever, it swung out far enough. And in the 2010s, I think that we saw some extremes. Now, this is where you would say it's not feminism, it's the feminists. But the feminists were talking about mansplaining. They were talking about what is it where you like spread your legs too far? I forget what that was. But on the subway, like men take up too much space and all that kind of shit. And then also like with the Me Too movement, it's not whether or not like male sexual abuse needed to be exposed. Male sexual abuse needed to be exposed. However, like, do people need to be canceled for awkward attempts at courting as they grow up? And so I would say correlatively, this correlating with of young men dropping out of the dating pool entirely. I would say that this is a bad side effect. It needs to be reeled back in. We need to offer young men more grace when they're figuring out their social stuff. And then also in the era of social media, we borderline might need some fucking boot camps. Like we might need Kyla to watch episodes of The Bachelor and Bachelorette and explain the female perspective on body language and all that bullshit, because a lot of dudes just they don't know their elbow from their asshole.
Yeah, I mean, I think social skills training would be really good. I think this is something that I really liked about pickup artistry. So like way, way, way back before it was like Red Pill, is that I think pickup artistry was like the best resource that men had. There was like a couple of things, like some ideological things I don't like, but the skills they gave men were like by and large like pretty good. And then it's turned more into like recently, like pickup artistry before was like, how do you be charismatic essentially? And how do you look for no's? And now it's been like, how do you sidestep her nose and convince her that she actually wants you when she definitely doesn't?
I was about to say
I
that
just wanna be
that's
very
my
clear.
impression. That's my impression of pickup artists. My impression of pickup artists is like basically it's like the sleazy salesman. That's my impression of it.
A lot of them became that, but like some of the first ones, like old, like in like 2005 to like early YouTube space. I'm trying to, I think it's called the Pickup Guys. That was like the main group that Nick watched. That's where he gets like most of his dating, like charisma and stuff skills from. They were like pretty decent. And then a lot of like the issue with any group that's focused on a demographics issues is they often become very weird and hateful towards the opposing group, right? So like feminists become misandrous because feminists' interest is women, and the thing that most often leads to problems for women is men, the opposing group, which creates this really intense incentive structure in feminism to be misandrous. I think meninism has the same issue. Any male-oriented group often becomes very angry towards women because it's catering towards men and their issues, and so it becomes a
I think that's where like faith-based stuff. I know a lot of people are like super hostile to religion, particularly in this space. But what I would say is that like I don't see any problems with Jordan Peterson's prescription for biblical masculinity, where it's like, you know, tough enough to survive the environment, tough enough or vicious enough to fight predators, and nurturing enough to nurture the vulnerable. I think that's like a perfect example of positive masculinity. And then I would also say with my retreat, what was interesting was I was sharing part of the stage of life that I'm in, especially having young kids and being married. You know, my wife and I have been together for 13 years now. So it's hard to not let the logistics of life, especially when you have kids, overtake your relationship. And so what ended up happening was I was kind of worried that I was going to share some of my experiences and I was going to be totally alone. But what ended up happening was nearly every single man who was there, who was in a committed relationship for a prolonged period, they identified that they had gone through a similar phase where the balancing of your relationship with your wife versus being a father versus managing a household versus managing a career, it's hard to balance all of those things, and calibrating that is super difficult. And so that kind of like positive male enforcement, you know, I didn't get around with the fellas and they were like, oh yeah, fuck her, she doesn't appreciate you, she's a piece of shit, you should get divorced. Like that's not what happened. They were like, yeah bro, I went through that, this is how we figured it out. So that's where I think maybe scripture isn't the solution, but some kind of emphasis on like pro-social positivity needs to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't look to Christianity for like model marriages by any means. The rates of like vaginismus and female like lack of sexual orgasm in marriages, in religious marriages, is exceptionally concerning.
Wait, but hold up. So are we talking about Christians or are we talking about Christianity? What are we talking about?
Christians.
Okay. All right. Continue.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Well, so when we're talking about Christians, we're talking about like the prescriptions, right? So like, yeah, a lot of Christian relationships, like what you're talking about, are like really good narratives and stuff that we can like fall to. The issue is that like it also comes with like, oh yeah, she's the old ball and chain, and like, you know, like we're gonna like hate each other for a few years, and like that's normal. And it's like, it is common. It's definitely normal. A lot of people, like for example, I remember growing up being taught that there's like a honeymoon phase in your relationship where you want to touch each other and you want to be with each other and you're best friends, but that like goes away, and that's normal. And I remember telling Nick this when we've been dating for about a year. I was like, it's normal that we don't want to hang out as much. And he's like, if that's what relationship looks like long term, I don't want it. I want to be your best friend. I want to go on adventures. I want to hang out. Like I want to like each other.
Oh, what a sweet guy.
Yeah. And to be honest, it was a really good like mind break. And I was like, wait, that's true. So we're both really intentional about like being best friends. And 7 years later, we're best friends. We're still best friends, right? And we don't have kids. We've gone through a fucking lot though. And we're still best friends. And this idea, but like this is a common Christian prescription. Is that like, oh, like you'll come to like slightly resent each other, and that's normal. And it's like you're not really best friends. You're like household roommates that have sex obligatorily and raise children together. And it's like that's not a relationship anyone wants either, right? And so like I think one of the issues is that like the prototypical example of the masculinity that you're giving, I think is like a really good one for a lot of young men that they can aspire to. I just prefer a type of meninism that expands the scope and scripts of what men can be as well, in the way that we've done it for women, right? Like women's scripts before in Christian land was like demure and keep sweet. Okay, well now we fucking love a fierce dommy mommy who's like will talk back and be a little bit confident and mean, but like will also like snuggle up to you in the bed. Like we've expanded the scripts of like what women can be. Thank God, because I'm not demure and I don't keep sweet. But we haven't done this for men. Like men are very 3D characters in our society, but the roles they get to occupy are very, very minimal. Whereas females, we actually get to occupy a ton of roles now, but all of them are like 1D to 2D. We don't have many 3D female characters anymore yet.
Yeah, well, number one of the things that you said that I think is resonating in my brain right now is intention. I think that's one of the main things. Like men can be super intentional when it comes to work. They can be intentional when it comes to hobbies. They can be intentional when it comes to even like the family that they want to build. But when it comes to intention around like relationships and paying attention and dates and all that kind of stuff, that's I think that you basically have to, at least maybe it's just me, but I have to bring the intention that's natural for me for like ambition and work. And I have to bring that to relationships, which I think is a little bit of a challenge. And then I think with men too, I agree with you that it might not be like there's lots of 3D men, I suppose is what you said. However, I do think that it's easier nowadays for men to be much more than they were maybe a generation ago, maybe 2 generations ago. I think that 2 generations ago, the 2 emotions you were allowed to feel as a man is like anger and apathy. That's like the 2 things you're allowed to feel. And then I think
it's about where they're at now.
What's that?
It's about where they're at now.
Well, I agree, but I think that's because we probably have cultural momentum, not because there's like this like strict prohibition against being a loving husband or a loving father. And so I don't really find when I try to be a loving husband or a loving father, I don't really find a lot of people talking shit about it. If anything, I find people being like, damn, the world needs more of that because like the world is so fucked up and so many people are assholes and so many people don't take care of their kids or don't take care of their families or whatever. So if anything, I'm not really finding, some gruff, drunk uncle or dad to cuff me by the ear and call me a pussy. I'm actually finding like a lot of people who are just like, oh yeah, the world needs more of that. Keep doing that. So I think men have momentum in apathy and anger, but I don't think the guardrails are as strong as they were for men being able to express themselves in a whole bunch of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mixed. I think one of the issues that you like, men really like praise you for being like a dad and stuff like that. You're also like pretty hyper masculine. Like imagine if you were clean shaven and your like voice was like a little bit higher, like not quite, you don't like quite have the gay accent, but like you're close. Right. And you like weren't very muscular and you like dressed in like more pastel colored button downs, right? So you're still like a straight dude.
Listen, I might be mean to that guy. So.
Well, that's the issue. That's the issue.
No, that guy just needs to lift weights. That's all he needs to do. Just lift weights. Sure, it's fine.
We can shame him for not exercising. Okay, but first of all, we will treat fat men as more masculine than skinny men, which is fucking stupid because fat men are still unhealthy, much more unhealthy than most skinny men, by the way. But second of all, if he looks good in fucking pastel button downs, let him cook. This is what I like Gen Z. Gen Z is like way more chill about like the way men dress and like want to look and stuff, which I think is good. Like I think it's good that they express themselves. Right?
Now we're splitting. I went from the guardrails aren't as strong as they used to be, but they're like, no, reinforce the guardrails immediately.
You really did. You really did, right? And so it's like
no, but I don't think that's bad though, because so for instance, I understand trust me, I understand that not everybody can be everything and not everybody is interested in everything. However, I do think that there's things that every human being ideally should be capable of. And I think that regardless of whether or not you're 5 foot or 6 foot, regardless of whether or not you're 150 pounds or 300 pounds, I think that if you're a dude and borderline, if you're a chick, you should probably know how to work out, and you should probably work out, and you should probably know how to defend yourself in violent encounters. And I understand that if women are like not as interested in that, I'm not going to like try to compel them to do so. But if I had a daughter, I brought this up earlier. I think if I had a daughter, I would bring her up and I would try to teach her like martial arts and shooting firearms and all that kind of stuff. It's not just good for men; it's also good for people. And so, me bullying a pastel wearing khaki pant twink, it's not just because like I resent his non-masculinity. It's because I think that he should engage in things that I think are good for everybody.
Sure, but I don't think people are judging the skinny guy in pastels because he's not going to the gym. They're judging him because he's not masculine enough.
Why do you think they're judging? Why do you think they're judging him?
Because he's not masculine enough in the way that they want him to be.
Yeah, but
Which is why they won't bully the fat guy who
Ma-
wears ball caps because he's wearing ball caps and he's fat. Even though it's like, if anyone should be, if what we care about here is overall health and fitness, and that everyone should be doing this thing, okay, well then we wouldn't care about the pastels, right?
but the fat guy can at least hold on.
I can get behind the fat phobia and be like, yeah, everyone should go to the gym and everyone should work out. Sure, I can get behind that. Okay, I love when people are fit, and I don't like when people are not fit. But that's not the same thing as looking at the guy who's skinny in pastels and viewing him as fundamentally less masculine, and as a result, like emasculate is eroding a man's value. Like emasculating a man is one of the best ways you can erode a man's value in a way that you can't like unfeminize a woman in a way that erodes her value. She could be a bad woman and now she's eroded as a value, but that's more about her characteristics, like how she acts, than about like how she looks.
My mean pushback is that the fat guy could at least sit on you. Okay, so even if the fat guy can't outrun you, outlift you, whatever, he can just roll on top of you, and that's how he can win a fight. So that's why the fat guy is more masculine than the twink. Now, when it comes to the twink, maybe this is overly like liberal or modern of me, but I just found so many people to have redeeming attributes, regardless of their like physical characteristics. So for instance, I have a friend named Dave. He's an artist. He's maybe 5 foot. He's not particularly in shape. Probably smokes too much. He's kind of a hipster, but he's an excellent like artist is the term I want to use, but he draws really well. He's like just really good at drawing. And then same thing with like Max. Max is actually a pretty masculine guy, but he probably doesn't pursue masculinity super aggressively. So people might judge him, and he's kind of hipstery as well. But he's an excellent guitarist, like insanely good. And so the people who I have found who don't stereotypically fit the archetypical masculine mold, typically they have something that redeems them and kind of like brings a value that you shouldn't be dismissive of. And I don't know, maybe that's why I feel like twinks should still be forced to lift weights. Fat people should still be forced to lift weights. But if you're not stereotypically masculine, people should still look for whatever that redeeming value is.
I would say like the redeeming value. Like I would just like to stretch our concepts of masculine, right? I want it to include pastels.
Except like Timothée Chalamet wearing nail polish and a fucking dress. Why?
Sure, maybe. Well, the dress, maybe I'll give it to you because I just think dresses look bad on a male figure. Like I just don't think it flatters the male figure, right? But the nail polish, who fucking cares? I love nail polish on a man. Like it's hot, sexy.
All right, maybe I'm just homophobic. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old school. It's fine.
Yeah, like this is what I mean, right? This is the stretching of the masculine identity that they get to express in. Like, look at Gen Z men. Like a lot of them paint their nails. A lot of them have like really cool aesthetics, and they do a lot of things, and they think about their clothing a lot. And I think that's fucking awesome. Like, that's great. And if they start thinking about social interactions and looking for subtle body language, that's also awesome. And to everyone asking about kilts, yeah, kilts look stupid. I've always thought kilts look stupid.
I think the anxiety, though, the anxiety maybe from somebody who fits the mold a little bit better. The anxiety is if a man becomes overly conscious of body language. Like I think body language should be in education. That way you have like a life skill in order to navigate the social world. But if you kind of like take that on a volunteer basis because you like it, you know, maybe that's like stereotypically feminine. And then same thing with like the painted nails or the different aesthetics or whatever, the overemphasis on fashion. I think the reason why maybe I'm instinctively hostile to it is because I'm asking kind of like, what are they missing within the realm of masculine stuff as a result of overly focusing on these stereotypically feminine things? That's my instinct. And so as an example, like I think you should, you know, even if you don't like eating fish, you should probably know how to fish, and you probably shouldn't be a pussy when you have to touch like a slimy fish. You know, you should be able to go outside and hike and walk in the woods without freaking out about bugs crawling on your skin. You should be able to shoot guns or look at blood or any of that kind of stuff. And if Timothy Chalamet...
Okay, this is where we're going to test your positive sexism. I think women should do the same. I think it's incredibly pathetic when women scream at bugs. And I judge them as pathetic losers in the same way that I would judge men. I can acknowledge societally.
No, I'm with you.
Society will view the man worse. Well, this is it. This is the issue. I agree that men should have this. The issue to me is this is not gendered. People not being pathetic pussies, to me, is not gendered, because I think there's a lot of pathetic women and there's a lot of pathetic men, and all of it's cringe. I agree, though, society will view the anxious man worse. Right, because of positive sexism. The woman who's scared of bugs will just infantilize.
Not only am I okay with this, maybe this is where I could like break bread on it, and then honestly I might talk to my chat and go to bed because it's kind of getting late for me. But what I was going to say is like, if you want to look like Timothy Chalamet and you want to wear dresses and you want to paint nails, then I will judge you substantively less if you can change a tire, shoot a gun, walk in the woods, build a fire, and fish. And if you can do all of those things, then at that point, paint your fucking nails and wear a dress. Yeah, fish.
Fish is on that? God.
Be able to catch a fish and be able to touch a fish without freaking out. Then yeah, then I think that's...
I'll give touch a fish. I don't give a fuck if they can catch a fish.
You don't give a fuck if they can put bait on a hook and throw it out into a lake and sit there for like 30 minutes until a fish bites?
Wait, are we talking... Wait, well, now you're making it seem like just a skill issue. Yes, I hope that they have cognitive capacity to understand how to fish. I don't give a fuck if they have any skill at fishing.
No, I don't care if they have... Okay. Touch... Fine. Go to SeaWorld and touch a fish. Okay? Like,
sure, that's fine.
Without freaking out.
Farmer's market and touch a fish. Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
If you can do all that shit, you can paint your nails. But you got to do that shit first. So,
sure, but then it's like, this isn't a standard that you're erecting uniquely for men, because it seems like you said that the same is true for women. Like, women should be able to touch a fish and walk out in the woods and not be scared, and they probably should be able to take care of themselves. They should definitely know how to take apart a gun and put it back together, right? And they should be able to be like competent and confident in a number of areas. Probably change a tire would be good as well. So this isn't like masculine coded stuff. But
well, I think, okay, so I agree with you. Not only do I agree with you that it's good, if I had a daughter, that's how I would raise her, right? So I kind of agree with you that this shouldn't be a gendered thing. This should be a cross-gender thing. However, I will revert to the point where, let's say you have like an 8-year-old girl and you're trying to teach her how to do this stuff, right? You're trying to teach her how to fish. You're trying to teach her how to shoot guns. You're trying to teach her how to do all this shit. And she's like, fuck that. I want to go inside and play with my dolls, and I want to drink tea, and I want to, eat fucking croissants and shit. And I want to learn a different language and learn how to sew. I'm not going to I'm not going to pick on that girl for engaging in the stereotypes of her gender. Whereas if a guy, if a 8-year-old boy, if they were like obviously homosexual, like they already had a lisp at like 8 years old, like maybe I wouldn't bully them as much. Maybe I'd be like, okay, Timmy, go play with the dolls and drink tea. We all know you're going to be gay later. But if they were like, if they were any level of masculine whatsoever, then I would probably be like, no, you need to stay and learn how to build a fire. No, you need to not freak out, and you need to learn how to, shoot a gun or whatever. So yeah, I would push a boy way harder than I would push a girl in order to learn this stuff.
Yeah, I understand the society would do that. I just think it's like benevolent sexism, and I think it just like does crush boys a little bit. Like I think Timmy should go in and play with dolls, and also when they're required to go and like learn how to like do basic skills, they both have to come out and do basic skills. And like she doesn't get the pass. If she gets the pass, he gets the pass, or they don't get the pass.
Well, then I would say my benevolent sexism probably is the way that the world's going to be for the foreseeable future. But if you gave me an option between the world where nobody gets a pass and the world where everybody gets a pass, obviously I'm going to choose the one where nobody gets a pass. And then I was going to say, I was going to share a little story. So I love my boys. They're sweet. They're awesome. They're kind. They're funny. They're weird. They're great. And, you know, there's obviously like the instinct from a dad where you're like a little worried where maybe they're expressing like too much of a feminine trait at some place. And I'm not really worried about that with my boys. I'm not going to lie. But one of the things that, you know, I like kids. And so my kids cuddling babies was kind of like heartwarming to me. But I'm not going to lie. I also loved it when they were like cuddling a baby doll, but then they take the baby doll 30 seconds later and they use it as a hammer to like hit another toy. And so like it's like they're being very sweet and gentle and, you know, putting a bottle in like the baby's, you know, the baby doll's mouth, but then they're also using it as a hammer 30 seconds later. And that's what I want out of my boys. So.
Yeah, I agree. I want boys who will touch a fish and let their daughter put a tear on their head. I want both.
That's something that somebody was saying in my chat is that it's different to paint your nails and go out because you're making a fashion statement versus letting your daughter paint your nails and you just want her to have fun.
Shut the fuck up. Kill yourself. Paint your nails if you want to. Holy shit.
They're right.
Your ass take. No. Yes, let your daughters paint your nails. And also, if your son wants to paint his nails, let him paint his fucking nails.
No, I'm good. But anyways, all right. Any saved rounds? Anything we should address before we wrap up?
Nope. I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Well, it was hanging out. I wish you and Nick the very best. I hope you have a beautiful night. Have fun with the content, and I shall see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's bedtime. I'm going to have to see you guys in about 9 hours. And so I'm going to want to wrap. I want to thank everybody who donated tonight. Some non-grassroots hegemon Oilers. I hope grassroots hegemon is proud of us. Patriarch with 20 gifted memberships. Numinax with 10. Numinax with 10 again. Anonymous Chatter with another 20 gifted memberships. Thank you, King. Christian Valeris with the 50. Thank you, King. Saying the sex box will destroy society. AI better convince the straight women to be bi-curious. True. SGM for 2 says, enjoy your night all. Thank you for the donation, SGM. And Fell Runner with the 5 says, midnight oil for working overtime. Thank you, King. I parasocially love you. If you have any questions or concerns and anything that you want me to address before I leave, I'm going to start with this comment from Taze and Christian Valeris, and then I'm going to scroll down. If you have anything that you want me to address, then just ask it in chat. Just do @Counterpoints Politics and ask me a question. I'll answer it for you. Like the stream, share it with your friends. And then you guys have been too nice. You guys have seriously, you've given so much money over the past couple of weeks. I have no right to ask you for any more. So thank you for your financial support and thank you for your viewership. I parasocially love you. Kylis will say this, but I bet that she and Nick don't know how to disassemble a firearm. They might. They've been in the States for a while. Tay says there's a big difference between your daughters painting your nails and painting them on your own aesthetic. I think that's funny that she was like, no, fuck you, Taze. Like she didn't know that you said it, but I do think that's funny. Book says paint on the nails. I mean, there's a difference between all black and a French manicure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not feminine at all. I'm just not about having painted nails. True. Black and blue is valid too. Cringe. Stop worrying about other people and worry about yourself. Easy peasy. Nope. That's a liberal take. No thanks. Do a bloodborne visceral attack. You know what I was thinking, guys? You know what I was thinking? So obviously I have plenty of ideas that I don't end up executing. You should talk to me about the 15 to 20 minute videos, and I'll tell you why we're not doing those. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'll tell you right now. So we had this idea where I was going to do 15 to 20 minute or 10 minute to 20 minute summaries of the videos. because I thought that the VODs were not making any money. It turns out that the VODs are making some money. Now, it's not like enough that the channel can just survive off of VOD revenue, but they're making substantively more than I thought they were. And they're making substantively more than when the channel first started. So realistically, cutting the watch time by 90%, even if it would increase viewership numbers, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think I can change course. I think I just have to stick with the VODs. So I'm sorry to the people who might have been thinking like, oh man, 15 to 20 minute summaries, that'd be sick because I don't want to watch all of Counterpoints' content. I understand, and I'm sorry, but we're probably sticking with just VODs. We're just sticking with 2-hour VODs for now. Tay says, answer for your crimes of allowing Doobie to influence you. I don't know if he's influenced me that much. He gave like a really large super chat, and I argue with him in chat. And I try to steelman his perspectives, but I don't realistically think that he's changed my mind on anything. Not anything that I didn't already believe. Beef Supreme says, your publicly visible painted nails. Lol, true. Jonah says, nah. Patriarch gifted another 10 memberships. Seriously. Thank you, Patriarch, for 30 total gifted memberships. And thank you, Anonymous Chatter. And thank you, Christian Vlaris, for oiling tonight. And thank you, Fellrunner, SGM, and Numinax for super chatting as well. I really do appreciate you guys. Fellrunner says, this is my own kick for the next Blackhawk stream and to start up a liberal gun education content. True. That's another one of the projects that I need to do. I have so many fucking projects I need to do. Oh, the other project that I wanted to do amongst the 10,000 other things. I was thinking, so Sunday night, I'm editing videos anyways, or I'm scripting and I'm writing. And Saturday or Friday and Saturday, Sunday, I might have to save for the wife. I might need to hang out with the wife and have a permanent date night on Saturday. Maybe we could do, or maybe we could do it on Saturday when she gets back from work. But yeah, Saturday back from work. So Sunday, I was thinking we could do game night, but maybe we would stream game night. And so that way we're still making money while we're doing it. But what we would do is, let's say we wanted to do a co-op. Like Halo, I think the new Halo campaign evolved, meaning the original Halo that they're re-releasing. I think they said they're doing 4-person co-op. So doing a Space Marine 2 campaign playthrough, co-op, chill gaming night, where I'm also streaming and responding to chat, that would be sick. Doing a Halo campaign evolved, so Halo CE, 4-person co-op playthrough, that would be sick. Doing Darktide playthrough co-op, that would be sick. And then maybe I would just stream it. So maybe by combining it with a cooperative, that way it's like a community thing because we're playing cooperatively and we could rotate who's playing through campaigns. Excuse me. But then making it a stream night, maybe I could excuse it to the wife and be like, yeah, I'm in there for 3 or 4 hours playing video games with the boys and screaming, but I'm also still streaming, which is technically work. So I don't know. I don't know. It was just something that popped into my head. Bud123 says there's a new YouTube hype feature. I can hype your VOD videos on the YouTube mobile, which might help them. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I'm hoping the Dust Bloods is like Bloodborne 2. Cool. If Doobie is bribing you, he's not getting his money's worth. That's true. Christian Blaris gave me another $20. Thank you, King. You're too kind to the channel. Admit Doobie is contrarian. Say it, you know it's true. I already know it's true. He used to take contrarian positions during the debate. Also, I think that sometimes he does say shit in chat just to piss people off. Cause and Effect says, I can't believe Hassan threw a lightning bolt at his dog and it left a Nazi tattoo on her right before his dog started his Senate campaign. Based. I've enjoyed watching the Machiavellianism he brings. He is definitely a Varus. Yeah, he's Varus. Games are for kids. 91 says, with subs, ? I'm not sure what you mean. Tay says, are you saying you want me to absolutely destroy you in Halo again? Yes, that is what I'm saying. Who is going to carry Connor in Halo, lol? Taze. Taze is going to carry me in Halo. I thought I was good until I started playing with Taze. And then Taze is a fucking sweat monster. He fucking sweats like a motherfucker. Beef says, hey, I'm serious. Level your damn camera, lol. No. No. You're just going to have to deal with this camera angle. Patriarch says he's way smarter and cooler than Doobie. Not sure who you're talking about, but if you're talking about Taze, sure. Varus. Yes, Varus, the Spy Master. With subs for campaign. I don't know if you're saying like you would need to subscribe to the channel to be a part of the campaign. No, man, it'd be free. It'd just be whoever wanted to. It would be whoever wanted to play. So list, how you spell that? You are listing, right? Lol, list, how you spell that? What the fuck are y'all talking about? What is Samantha Banana doing? She is good at Halo. Yeah. Samantha Banana. She DM'd me a week ago. We hadn't talked in a while. It was good to catch up. Connor's going to get caught painting his nails and wearing pastel shirts. Nah, I'm not that gay. Also, I'm happy Halo is coming to PlayStation. Xbox been ass since the Xbox One. True. Like a listing ship? No. I do miss the fucking video game streams, combos with Samantha, Tiberius, etc. Yeah, we need to get back into that. Magnus says, I'm an R-slurred 19-year-old Gen Z, and I think black nail polish or sick metal nail polish looks good on a dude. Seen a bunch of my peers with nail polish, and I feel like it's fine. Person blue eating spaghetti. Okay. I mean, to each their own. I just might bully some people sometimes. Like, again, if you're going to wear black nail polish, okay. Can you change a tire? Can you touch a fish without freaking out? Do you freak out whenever bugs touch you? Can you grab a spider and put it outside? That way it can eat mosquitoes. Can you shoot a gun? Can you disassemble a gun? Can you clean a gun? Can you drive a manual stick shift car? Now, I understand not everybody's going to be able to do all that shit, but if you can't do any of that shit, then yeah, you haven't earned your nail. She DM'd you this week, lol based. Yeah, Samantha Banana. Need to get Samantha back in the crew. But anyways, I'm just going to thank everybody again. Thank you, Patriarch, for the 30 total gifted memberships. Insane. Numinax with $20 in super chats. Anonymous Chatter with 20 gifted memberships. Thank you, King. Christian Blairs, thank you for the $50 oil. SGM, thank you for the super chat. Fellrunner, thank you for the super chat. And Christian Blairs, thank you again for the additional super chat. I am going to go to bed. That way I can see you guys approximately at 9:30. If I'm 10 to 20 minutes late, my apologies, but it is what it is. What if you catch a goose, but you don't have a fishing license? I don't know. Is that a Letterkenny reference? Games Are for Kids 91 says, I can do all that stuff. We're an old breed, Connor. True. Beef Supreme says he can't do that, but he can make seashell necklaces. Well, that's pretty base. That actually gets you pretty far. Touching fish consensually? Mostly. I could do most of that stuff, but I have no desire to paint my nails, lol. Well, you could if you wanted to. Christian Blair says, have a good night, Connor. In chat, see you next time. Thank you, Christian Blairs. Omni Gladius says, hey, Counterpoints. Hey, chat. Okay, good night. Yeah, Omni Gladius, rewind the VOD. Go check us out on YouTube at Counterpoints Politics. You'll be able to see what we were talking about. Fellrunner says, I can do all those things other than guns. I'm not a gun owner. I would wear black nail polish without embarrassment or any other color, but this is not the same as social judgment that one gets. True. Input Output says, thank you, Connor, for the late stream. Been fun. Good. Macadanus says, laugh my ass off. Waking up at 5:30 a.m. Motherfucker, lock in. All right. I'm gonna go work as a salmon breeder. If you know. That sounds worrisome. All right. Anyways, parasocial love. Thank you for the support. Have a beautiful night. See you tomorrow.